Alright, friends. I think we're ready to go. No captions again, because multi-person captions fucking suck. But hi, everyone. Big Cache is off, right? There's no Big Cache today, right? Please tell me there's no Big Cache. I got FruitySpruce with me today. I'm deafened and muted in our Discord call, but it's fine. But not anymore, because Fruity's here. Cache is regular size today. Great.
A regular cache.
It's regular cache. I would say all day, every day, but that would be a lie. Sometimes I'm big cache. It's fine.
Most of the time, regular cache.
Most of the time. It's regular sized cache. It's fine. Everything is great. How's everyone doing? That includes you, Fruity. How are things?
I'm doing alright.
Yeah? Good.
How much did I did a stream earlier with Sarah and Silver.
Oh, that's exciting.
And then I played for 5 minutes EA all day. Oh, and I slept in as well.
Perfect. I'm also sleepy, Allie. It's just a sleepy day. I've been up since like 4 o'clock though. I did take a short nap. Took an hour nap. But that was it. Then I've just been on the go all day. It's great. Yeah, sometimes big cache, sometimes baby cache. never, not rarely, never lobster quiche.
I'm sure I've seen lobster quiche.
Once, and that was it. Never again. Not ever again. You might remember, but it's never coming back, ever.
There is lobster quiche. Hidden lobster quiche locked away.
No, it's where Weevil Underwood is. Forever locked away.
Weevil Underwood quiche and lobster quiche locked in lobster jail.
Can you imagine Lobster Weevil Underwood? Horrible.
Well, now you gotta do it.
No, I don't, actually. I've genuinely forgotten how to make the Weevil voice, which is for the best.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was perfectly accurate, which is why it was horrible.
I hate that. I hate that. The stars will never align for Lobster Quiche. Lobster Quiche is gone. We have felled that beast. It will never come back. Ever.
Lobster quiche.
I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. Maybe that'll
I
be
have
the
this
next community
blurry
challenge.
fun video of lobster quiche in the wild.
That's just a Bigfoot. That's not a lobster quiche.
Grip and rip it.
Grip it and rip it. But yeah, we're doing season 2 of The Walking Dead today, and I'm very excited. I've only played this the once, and I don't remember a lot. What I do remember is all over the place. Apparently I have gotten every achievement for season 2, but I think all of the achievements are just like waypoints. It's not choosing a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, it's like completed episode 1, completed episode 2, and nonsense like that, so.
Very easy achievements if you get the game for free on PlayStation Plus.
Honestly, I was looking at season 1 to see, because I didn't 100% that one, but apparently there's like 8 achievements for the 400 days episode or whatever the fuck, which
Yeah.
I considered playing, but they're 15-minute episodes. Didn't seem worth it.
Most of them just aren't very good. It's kind of just all. Not great.
Well, it's a good thing we're not wasting our time with it. But yeah, I think we're just gonna go ahead and get started. We will have to pause probably about an hour in or so, because Lamia is gonna come home. She went to the vet today, and it went fine. Everything's perfectly normal. My dad just has to drop her off, is it? Hi, Emma! Howdy,
Emma.
friends! How is it going? Let me turn the music off and hop on over here, and then pull this up. Is it still streaming for you, Fruity?
Oh, I didn't check.
Gotta check?
No.
Oh my gosh! Listen! Walking Dead, listen! It is a
Oh my
Fruity! You hear... You do indeed hear.
There's a Fruity! It's me!
We've decided that we're gonna do Walking Dead as a co-op stream, because it was fun, and yeah. It's just what we've chosen. Thank you, Allie, for getting all those shout-outs out there. If y'all don't follow each other, Twitch, I would say, why are you not following each other at this point? You gotta... There's all the links. Go follow each other. You're all amazing, wonderful, cool human beings. That looks loud. Game looks loud. So I'm gonna turn it down just a smidge.
It was very windy out.
It's so windy. So heckin' windy. But if that ends up being too quiet, let me know and we'll adjust the sound as per usual. I don't know why I'm using my mouse. I also don't want episode 5. Oh no. Wait. Oh no. Can I have a new save file? Yeah, this. Let's go. Alright. We'll still probably just do an episode per stream, or an episode and some. Yeah, we gotta import our saves. Do it. Gotta
Ben
remind
fucking
everyone that we
Paul.
dropped Ben. Okay, it was found. Great, perfect, fantastic. There it is. Oh no. Why is the voice so quiet now?
I'm Clementine.
This is fine.
All by yourself.
We didn't technically drop Ben. I just let him hang there until he fell.
The zombie grabs him and Kesh just refused to shoot the zombie until it got him.
I hope you know what you're doing with her.
We hate Ben Paul here. He's the worst.
We're not big Ben heads.
It was a drop of omission. Not Ben heads.
Okay. You can come.
Oh no!
Just stay quiet.
No, Ben was the worst. We were talking about it last time where it's like, it's not just that he like messes things up, it's just he fucks things up in ways that you just would never anticipate he would.
She wouldn't be.
And it's just like, you gotta stop.
Die!
It's practically weaponized incompetence, honestly.
Come here.
I'm glad you came around, Travis, and getting Ben with us.
Don't need it, Krista.
Right? I was screaming. Also, not this again. Listen, game, I remember what happened, okay? We were there. We were just there. It's fine. So yeah, Lee's dead. Everyone's dead. They're all dead, Dave. It was a lot. I was so sad. But it's okay because we've got Clementine. Clementine is still around. Clem is safe.
What do you think?
Oh, Mead, you can't be serious.
Krista and Omid are still here too.
You're not doing that.
Oh,
Why
look
not?
who's pregnant.
Because.
Come on, Krista. What's wrong with Omid?
We're not calling our baby Omid. One of you is enough. Clementine, a little
It is
help
also you, Allie.
Omid the second.
here. No.
Omid Jr.
No.
What if it's a girl?
Then we name her Krista.
But I'm Krista. I don't want to call her Krista. That's just confusing.
So name her Genevieve.
I also
Care.
love
How can you not
Omid.
care?
He's
You're not taking this
precious.
seriously.
I
And
take
darling.
everything seriously, especially little Omid's future.
Keep talking, and you'll be sleeping in the rain tonight. Remember that time in Barstow?
Vegas weekend.
It's B
Why
time.
don't you get cleaned up in the girls' room, Clem?
I hope the sink
He's
works in there.
perfect.
I wouldn't count on it. Just be careful and make sure to keep track of your things. We'll be right next door.
Okay.
Okay, bye, Omid. I thought that was one of the stalls opening. This is fine.
Hello?
It's kind of gross.
Kind of gross. Doesn't look any different now than it did during, you know, the not apocalypse. Oh no!
Gross.
Not in the dirty bathroom.
Oh no.
Horrible.
What's that?
Somebody murdered the rabbit. Good for them. Also, the way that, like, Clem is just packing. Like,
Yeah.
she's fucking ready.
She'll headshot, dude. She didn't care.
She cared a
No one's
little.
here.
I mean, she did care a little bit.
She
But
cared
that
a
were her
little.
first one, right?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, good for the bunny murderer. I'm proud of them. I don't like rabbits. They freak me out. Fun case
Lucky
fact.
Bono's not here.
It's fine. Everything is fine. It wouldn't hurt Bono.
Please have water.
Hmm.
Excuse?
Figures.
I said I don't trust you. After the incident.
Listen, it only happens in video games, okay? I have seen their tails extend and that just made everything worse. Honestly. I do not like them.
Better.
Clem! You better have put the cap on that bottle, otherwise you just spilled a bunch of water.
What
Is it
does
this
it
one?
say T-bone is? Sorry.
T-Bone is the illest?
T-bone is the illest! We gotta
T-Bone
find T-bone.
is the illest. Oh, this was the wrong stall. I didn't see which one it went under. It's fine.
I'm trying to read what T-bone was, but a hat were in the way.
I definitely, like, when I first looked at that, thought it said Isist, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's illest. Got those crooked L's. Also, of course, it's the very last,
Maybe T-bone is FruitySpruce.
That's not a zombie. It's gonna be a zombie, though. Clem, you're kind of loud. Also, is FruitySpruce the illest?
I don't know. I don't know much about them. Just know that they're out there.
Somewhere. Clem panicked. She was going for a water bottle. Ruh-roh. Hey, that's my gun.
Get out of there. You're
Remember,
not
silence is a valid answer.
That's my gun.
It's mine now.
Give it back.
Why should I?
Oh no.
Get out here.
Oh no. Also, are you ready for me to play Clem as some mouthy brat?
You
She's
got
gonna
it?
be the
No, no.
sassiest.
Come on, let's see.
No, that's all I have.
That's it? How'd you make it this long?
She's gonna be
I'm
mean.
serious. What else you got?
That's it.
Don't lie to me. I'll pop you. Give me
Girl,
what
no
got.
you won't.
I'm not screwing around. Come on.
Just walk away.
Whatever. Give me that hat.
No.
Where'd you get it? I asked you a question.
I killed someone for it.
You killed? Just give it to me.
I've done it before and I'll do it again!
Junk, junk, junk. Look at all this junk. Shit, shit, and more shit.
Rude.
Why you ain't got nothing good? Like the last people I got. They had all kinds of good shit.
Hi, Omid.
That was a good catch. You ain't got nothing good. You just a little fish. You gonna cry, little fish? This your daddy? What a bozo.
Oh no. I forgot this happened this quick.
Yeah.
Her
Screw it.
boy. Told you she hadn't killed anyone before.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to.
Everyone's dying all the time.
I didn't mean to.
It wasn't Clem's fault.
We're blaming Clem.
Emma's being mean.
Did you hear me?
Emma's funny.
Not fighty, Emma.
Kangaroo, though.
Yeah, but it's not her fault she's an omen of death. Come on. Also mean. Poor baby.
Poor baby.
Oh, dang. We're not so baby anymore.
Krista, talk to me.
This will never work. Look at this. It's pathetic. The wood's too wet to burn. There's more smoke than flame.
What else can we do?
Find something that'll burn, maybe. I don't know. Won't be easy in the dark and in the rain. You should be doing this, not me. Tending a fire so you can cook and stay warm. It's something you have to be able to do, Clementine. Otherwise...
We can't build a big fire at night. It attracts too much attention. It's too dangerous when we're out here by ourselves.
We need to eat, don't we? We can't survive without food.
Just eat it raw. It's super fresh.
You think this is bad? Wait till we
Just
get
get
up the woods.
cockroaches from the
Then talk
grass.
to me about cold.
Cockroaches
Yes,
and olive oil. Hell yeah.
We still have a couple hard months ahead.
You gotta go the
Spring,
Virgil
then
diet.
Sleet, then ice, then
Rip
snow.
Virgil.
It won't be easy.
Never did anything. Never did anything bad to Virgil until his skeleton escaped. And he blew up.
Save for
In a
that
shower
because
of
it's
blood.
cold.
I'm sure it's completely
So we say.
unrelated.
We just need to keep moving north.
Two independent incidences.
I remember we were like, what happened? Was that like a bug? Is something... Oh wait, is it because I've been drinking olive oil this whole time?
You could definitely say it's a bug. Just gonna be silent. Krista doesn't want to talk to us.
I'm gonna go look for more wood. You just keep the fire lit.
I miss our poor boys.
Yeah,
What good lads.
we were the best. We were the best friends.
You were perfect. Also Kenny! But Lee! Stupid girl called him a bozo. If I could, I'd kill her dead again. Just for calling Lee a bozo. Give me that lighter.
We had Doc on the picture too, even though you didn't high-five him.
Don't care about Duck and Katya. It's
Don't
just
care about
Kenny. Why? Because he's a goober?
Because he died without ever experiencing the joy of a high-five.
That's what I'm here for. Just to disappoint children. Oh, no. I forgot about these. I liked it better when I just had to click on a thing. We're going heavy rain with it.
At least you don't use 6Xs.
That's true.
Still not enough.
Yeah.
The flames are too low.
Yeah. What's this? I was considering playing Heavy Rain on stream at some point, and then I thought better of it.
It's fine. I mean, you could.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to put myself through QuickTime event hell.
It is QuickTime event hell. You need to know which sections you're allowed to just fail all of the QuickTime events in to make it look funny.
Too wet.
I remember the bit where, and I can never remember his name, but like the main guy is like crawling through the vent and the glass. If you just don't do anything, he'll just crawl through and scream the entire time. But then he'll stop at a point and just cry as he's just laying on this glass. It's not great. I'm botching the don't burn the photo of Lee. You can botch the like finger cutting section as well.
There's a lot of ways to do that really bad.
Yeah, there are. Also, oh no.
I can't remember what things you can pick to try and do the cutting, but it's like you're in a room full of knives and you just take a spoon or something.
Right? I think there's like a dull letter opener or something. I'm pretty sure there's like bolt cutters. Okay, maybe we will play this on stream.
Where's the rest of your group?
Just do a bad
by
run.
myself.
Bullshit. He's lying. Cut the
Just want to go around screaming, Jason!
It's just me.
Jason!
Jason!
Jason! Oh no. You ready to kill some bandits?
Did you see the YouTube video? The dude managed to like bug the game out so he could just yell Sean all the time during the last bit.
Yes! Yes!
Beautiful.
Oh no. Oh, I've done this so bad! Oh, I forgot about all of this! Oh, we're gonna do it so bad all of the time.
Whoa! Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm just gonna stab this man with a branch. It's fine.
Bloody God.
Stop fucking running!
I did.
For me!
Bite him! Bite him, Clem! Aha!
Jesus Christ!
Take his finger off! Hell yeah, Clementine!
Come out of
Dude's getting bodied by an 8-year-old.
Maybe he should get good!
Jesus, are you fucking kidding me?
You're gonna pull her leg off!
You were on my last fucking nerve! Stop fucking
Oh.
kicking!
Oh! Oh, Clementine, watch out! Oh, never mind. You're fine. It's fine. Zombies don't know about going around. You should go, Clem. Oh! I hit the wrong analog stick. Okay, I
That went
understand.
well.
So I could use the left one for most of those, but that one, I guess, wanted me to use the right one. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It will happen a lot. Get him! Get him!
Consider
Get him!
getting done.
Never. Not even once. Zombie, please!
Pick up the arm. Beat him with it.
Can I lend you a hand? Okay, I just need to exclusively use the right analog. Lesson learned. Oh! Hope you can swim, Clem. Luna, had he picked on someone his own size, he would have fucking got even more destroyed.
Should have started with like a 4-year-old and worked his way up.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I just saw Travis's comment. She learned from Lee Fumbles Everett, the man with the highest body count. It's true.
It's true. I did look at the list though, and some of them are dubious.
Yeah?
One of the people on the list is Lee,
Sorry.
which I
Lee?
don't think counts.
No. No.
Also, one of the named characters on the list is Cop from Start of Game, who does not have a name.
He's Cop from Start of Game. That counts.
And he's a zombie at the time. I don't know. I don't know about that list. That's dubious.
Yeah, it does
Am I a
sound.
lie to everyone?
And you say you can't trust me.
Yeah,
Goodness.
how a team kill no one? I'd never do such a thing.
Look, it was just the one game, okay? I'll never do it again. Never again. I've learned my lesson.
No.
I've learned my lesson. I promise. Okay. Can we hop up here? Look, she was a baby, okay?
Think
Babies
about
can
this.
make mistakes.
If it weren't for Ben Paul, basically all of the bad things would never have happened.
Honestly, though, he was kind of the catalyst. Realistically.
Krista, are you there?
What's this? Look at this tree.
And that's a rock.
Yeah, it is, Nem. Somebody took this walker out with a sign.
Nice.
I want to be that cool. When can we weaponize signs in, Project Zomboid? Need to take a stop sign down and just decapitate a few zombies.
Decaffeinated.
Gotta decaffeinate all of them.
I can't help it when I hear the one word. I have to say the other word.
It's understandable. Decaffeinated. Where are you going, Clem?
I don't think you can even use a sign as a weapon in Cataclysm, and you can use everything as a weapon in Cataclysm.
That's tragic, because you should be able to use
Horrible.
a sign. Also,
You
there's a
should-
hydrate from Nem.
Go get some water.
Yeah, you do. I know you're
I'll be
leaving.
seconds. Don't pause. Don't wait for me.
But what if I pause?
You win! I said don't wait!
Go get your water. Thank you, Nem, for the hydrate.
Can't believe you do this.
I had to pause for me because I had to take a drink, okay? Listen. We talked about this before the start of stream. That Fruity was gonna have to get up to go get water.
I'm back. See? You didn't
That
even know.
took forever. That took
No, it didn't.
forever. Forever. It's been
You're
an
on chapter
hour,
2 now.
Fruity. It's been ages. I'm a grandma now. Hello? Tech and Wimdy. Also, crows, always jump scaring. I wonder if we'll see any floaty shoulder squiggles this time.
Oh yeah, we gotta keep an eye out for those.
It's important. Oh. Hi, doggo.
It's
Sam.
Boy. It's okay.
So we have Sam brother, Sam streamer, and now we have Sam dog.
Sam.
Sam dog.
Well,
Sam
nice to meet you, Sam.
Hungry puppo.
What's he doing?
Oh, you know, dog things.
Sam! Sam! Where are
Dog
you going?
stuff lying on the
Wait
sofa.
up.
Making his head
Starlight on the
stinky.
sofa.
Is that what?
Stinking up his head.
Is that what Lister's doing right now?
I am fairly sure that is what Lister's doing right now.
Hello!
Oh,
When I went
good boy.
downstairs a bit ago, he was in full potato mode on the sofa.
Perfect. I love him so much.
Pretty run over. You never know.
Love that goblin dog.
Let's look around for some food.
You run over and you give him pets and belly rubs, and he looks at you like, okay, I'll allow it, but I'm kind of doing something here.
Lister does need his own goblin
Looks like
emote.
it's been here for a while.
Fruity.
I need to get a picture of him with his ears up. He's been too relaxed. He's just been hanging out.
Gotta get him riled
Looks
up.
like they were a happy family once.
God.
I hope they left some
Gotta
food
do
behind somewhere.
it. Also, that family is dead. Clem, listen. They're dead.
Nothing edible.
You don't know that. Chew on it a little bit. It's frisbee time. Dog!
Wanna play? Wanna play catch?
Oh, dog. Look at that good pup.
Good boy, Sam.
You want to do it again, doggo?
Wanna go again?
I would like to pet that forehead.
Go get it, Sam. I bet you miss this. I sure do.
Well, then let's just do. This is it. This is the game now. I'm not gonna do it again.
I think
I'm
if
sorry.
you do it, Mari,
Think anyone's been
the
sleeping
frisbee
here?
gets lost
I
and
can't
it
tell.
stops again.
Maybe we better not wait around to find
It's because they
out.
know we would all just stand here and do this the entire time.
Oh yeah, I threw the frisbee for the dog until I ran out of being able to throw the frisbee. That would have been the whole game. I never got my
Better
achievements.
keep looking, huh, Sam?
It would have been worth it though, skipping the achievements to just throw a frisbee with a dog.
Hmm. How would I level up my gamer score?
Not much of a tent anymore. I bet scavengers tore it apart.
I would level up my dog score.
Yeah, I think dog score beats gamer score. Controversial take, I know, but
What's the matter, Sam?
What if you only play Dog's Life on the PS2 and you
oh no,
100% of it?
oh no. Also, I'll just let the dog
Please
bark
let
for a
there be
little bit.
Something good in there.
There's a
There's
cheat code in Dog's Life to make the dog poop. Sorry, that's a game effect. And a dog fact.
I'm so sick of that smell.
That's a dog fact. I do think I have Dog's Life downloaded from all those games you recommended to me.
No food here.
Gotta
either.
play her.
I gotta make the dog poop.
We gotta find the cheat code to make the dog poop.
Also, find Sam. Oh, look at the zombie. I see you screaming about the zombie.
He's dead.
I don't know, he's wheezing.
Look, you can see the bite. Looks like he tried to cut it out. But that never works. Ever.
Oh.
You just gotta do a bigger cut. You just gotta take the whole limb
You're
off.
smart. He's
Whole
not.
arm's gotta go.
Oh, you're smarter than all of them.
And then you not gotta run around all day.
No jumping from bell towers. Lifting people out of holes.
Shh. He can't hurt us.
Oh no.
Think he had himself tied up? Or did someone force him to do this?
Probably best not to think about that too much.
That looks like it hurt.
Big stick.
Stand back, okay?
Dog says, I don't understand you. Should probably do it again, Clem. Okay, never
Double
mind.
tap.
I'm gonna stick it to him. And it is true, I found a stick, now I gotta poke a dead guy with it. Those are the rules of nature. You gotta hit him a little harder. Okay. Good job.
Hey.
See, we just have to stay out of their reach.
Dog is like, do you have food?
Poor guy. I like to think that if they were alive, they'd probably want to help you. Nothing.
But now we got this nasty knife.
Still pretty sharp. At least we found something useful.
Probably stab someone with it in
Going
zombie
through that
file.
without food, okay?
Stab.
Does that work? Is that a thing in any zombie media?
I think so.
Cut your knife in zombie blood and then yeah.
I'd be shocked if at least one zombie something didn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, because,
Let's go one
like,
more time. Go get it, boy.
Ellie tried to do something like that, or at least bluffed that she did something like that,
Don't
right?
worry.
In the first one, she, like,
It was
didn't she,
good
like,
while it
spit
lasted,
blood
though,
into some
right?
dude's face and was like, see, I'm bit. Now you're infected.
You're right.
I thought
Don't
he
waste the energy
I thought she
anyway.
bit I can't remember his name.
Oh, David.
Yeah,
Because
I thought she
everyone
bit
was
David,
yelling at me for
and
yelling
then
at
showed
David.
that she was bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, well, I guess, yeah. Yeah, okay, not quite the same. That's fine.
Not quite.
Someone out there has to have done it, though.
We gotta find him and interview him.
And if not, we'll just have to make it ourselves. Alright, where is there a thing? Hi, zombie. Also, I threw the frisbee. It's gone forever now.
Yeah. You ruined
Check
frisbees.
everywhere.
Gotta do it, Clem.
Well, here we go.
Gotta get in touch with our inner Linus.
Oh my god. Thank you.
You can find perfectly good bread in the trash if you look at
Sam,
it.
I can.
You can find a whole dang cake in there
Let's
sometimes.
see what's inside.
I just kept finding baguettes.
Has anyone told the people of Pelican Town that they are supposed to be hard? Like, the bread is not bad. You can still eat it.
Please don't be bad.
Clem, what if we stab ourselves?
Also, that knife said zombie blood on it.
Right?
We should wash that.
She wiped it on her pants. It's all good. Beans!
Even if you can't get infected that way, you can get every other disease that
Right?
exists that way.
Gotta give some beans to the dog.
You got.
Gotta
I
give
guess you
beans
were
to the
pretty
dog.
hungry, too.
Look at the little stomping! Hey, wait, no! Wait, no! I didn't mean to hit back out! No, Clementine! We've
How could
made
you
a
do
terrible
this?
mistake. To be fair, I'll wait. It ends bad either way.
Yes.
I'm sorry, dog! What if I just keep punching? I'm sorry, dog. We could have still shared. Don't feed the dog the rainbow beans. I'm pretty sure those have like botulism or something in them. Also, I'm sorry, dog. Gotta kill the dog.
Yeah.
Gotta.
It's not a wild dog.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry, Sam.
This episode really just starts and then it's like, hey, you remember how you cried a lot last time? It's gonna be like 20 times worse immediately. Gotta get those content warnings up there. Oh shit! I vaguely remember some of what's happening now. I did remember the dog. Ellie, no! I'm excited to see what it is, though. I really like the book recommendations based on the games that we're playing. Gotta start reading more again.
I gotta start reading more again.
Do it! Do it!
I only read Sonic creepypastas now.
We were definitely cackling on the couch last night listening to that. It was very good. I'm sad I only caught like the tail end of your stream. It was still very good.
Just hang nonsense. I wanted to do another creepypasta stream. I might do another one.
Do it!
A full one.
Do it! We're here for
I
it.
do eventually, like, if I read for like 2 hours, I do like lose the ability to read for a while. I'm reading out loud.
It's a lot. It's a lot to do. Oh no. They're just going for a lovely stroll. Yeah, Dirk gently win.
Gonna do it.
Good.
I got the book out and ready.
Oh, I need to go.
I have Dirk gently in my hand right now.
I'm extremely excited
It's
for
here.
when we get to that. Make it happen. Zombie, please. Zombie, please. It's been a bad day, zombie.
I was walking with purpose. You're not allowed.
Honestly, though.
Remember that dude?
I do remember. It all came back to me. name like
I'm out.
Carlos?
Grab her, let's go. Come on.
Don't remember his name. I just
No.
remember him.
Carlos is the doctor.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I remember Carlos.
I mostly remember his idiot daughter.
I imagine that'd be a character you despise.
Fucking hate her.
I think we're safe.
I do remember really liking that guy though, in the green.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
What is your name?
Hey, you all right?
I can walk.
Oh, was that so? 'Cause last time I saw you could barely crawl away from that lurker back there. Look, you're in bad shape, kid.
It's been worse. We've dealt with worse. Remember that time we carried a 250-pound man
What are you doing?
into a
Where
shed?
are the people you're with? There's no chance you made it this long on your own.
My friend and I got attacked.
These folks mention what they were after?
They might have just wanted food. We were cooking some sort of weasel.
I'm
They
pretty
attacked
sure
you
it was
for
a
a
rabbit you were
Damn.
cooking.
That is low.
Actually.
They didn't mention
Some
any
sort of
names,
cryptid.
right? They weren't searching for you.
I mean,
Like a long-eared mouse with a fluffy tail.
I'm with you.
Luke!
Hey there.
That's
Hi.
his name.
I remember Luke.
Clementine.
It's nice to
Oh,
meet
it
you.
was Nick, but I think that's another one.
That's
Don't take
another
that
one
comfort.
who is
Yeah.
part of this
Doctor with
group,
us,
and he's a
you
loose
look like
fucking
you can
cannon, and
do
I
some-
also hate him.
What is it?
She's been bit, man. Fuck. What are we gonna do?
It was a
here?
dog. It was a dog bite.
No, it was a dog.
I didn't see any dog, Clementine.
We can go back. I can
Come
show
on,
you.
kid. We just saw you with those lurkers back there.
No, just look at it, please.
Yeah, and have you sink your teeth into Pete's neck? No way.
My neck? Why am I the
It
one?
does always.
I don't know a dog bite from a
Uh-huh.
mosquito bite from a lurker bite, man.
It's not.
No, say it. What were you gonna say?
If they're like up and talking and walking around and stuff, you don't need to make the decision right there and then, right?
All right,
Right?
let's see it.
Whoa,
No,
whoa,
there's
watch
there's
yourself.
definitely you
Hey,
can
don't look at me like that. You're the one that's bit here.
can
okay?
usually tell when somebody's getting ready to turn.
Yeah.
They're incredibly gray or green and very wheezy.
Is it like she says?
Well, could be a dog. Hard to say. So where'd this dog go? The one that did this.
No, what does that matter, Pete? Seriously.
I killed it.
What? Really? A dog shows up and bites you and you just kill it?
What would you
Luke!
have done?
I don't know.
It attacked me.
Still, you don't kill dogs.
It was dying. Listen.
Kill him on purpose.
Clementine,
Yes.
you telling us the truth?
Yes.
You looked me in the eyes when you answered.
Yes.
Pete will remember
All right,
that.
Clementine. That's enough for me.
Well, what else was she gonna say?
Luke,
I got a
fuck
good
you.
bullshit detector, Luke. That's why you can never beat me at poker.
You don't always beat me at. All right, how can you be sure?
Well, I'm sure I ain't willing to leave a little girl in the woods to die when we got
It's just a-
doctors that can make a call. We can have Carlos take a look at it first.
You're an obvious joke where we're just a good like, or
Ain't
you
gonna
know,
like
like.
this. Not with what
You
happened.
don't have to remind me of that, boy.
Right. Sorry, sir.
Gotta stop laughing at me.
Come on.
Hide those bites. If that don't work, say it was a dog.
Never hide bites. Don't be a bite hider.
Let's go, bite hiders.
Don't be a bite
Clementine,
hider.
you feel all right?
I'm fine. Just tired.
Well, you better be fine, because I ain't carrying you anymore with that bite on your arm.
Don't worry about.
Clementine take nap right here.
Oh, shit.
She's sleepy. So many people here.
Is that Luke?
She always told us that she and her friend were attacked. Then she was bitten by a dog.
What? And you just believed her? You should have put her out of her misery right there. dog bite my ass.
I forgot about this other pregnant lady. Holy shit, Nick!
Trigger, boy.
Whoa! Whoa! What the
You
fuck?
idiots! Every lurker for 5
We-
miles probably heard
You're the one telling me to
That's-
fucking shoot her.
We've
Everybody
been
just
to
calm
Savannah.
down
It
for a
was
second.
bad there.
Okay.
I just
It
need
was
a doctor,
so bad
and then I'll
there.
go. I don't want my arm to get infected.
None of us want to get infected. That's the
Immediately
We
starts
got a doctor right
crying.
here. Okay, he'll have a look. Now what the hell is wrong with you people? Okay, she's just scared.
We're all scared, Luke. Don't act
Forgot
like we're the
about
ones
this
being
lady,
irrational
though.
'cause we don't buy this bullshit story.
No way she survived out here on her own. Why are we even arguing about this?
Let me take a look.
Carlos is no
Go
Oscar.
ahead, he's a doctor.
I want to play Scarlet Hollow again? Fuck.
Carlos.
It's so good. Also, ouchies. Don't poke it. Don't just shove your fingers in there.
Whatever it was, it got you good.
This isn't how we do things, man. When you're bit, you get put down. End of story. I'm not going through this again.
No one's suggesting that.
We could take her arm off. I know that worked for a cousin down in Ainsworth. We could try that.
It won't do any good. You'll just be making it worse for the girl.
It's
Peep,
crazy.
peep,
No one's going to
Peep, peep,
volunteer
peep,
to do
peep,
that.
peep, 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 peep.
I would, if it means saving her life.
You don't want to do something you're gonna regret. Better to be sure, right?
Come on. She weighs about as much as a sack of flour. We could take her if it comes to that.
But yeah, there definitely needs to be like something to differentiate
What I
between
say,
a
stay
regular
inside.
infection and a zombie infection. Also, fuck that girl. I hate her so much.
Really hurts.
Cannot with that
It's only gonna get
child.
worse.
A dog.
I think I
Do you think
get
it
more
could
angry at
be?
Carlos for making her the way she
Right
is.
now, that's the least.
But I
of my
also
concerns.
hate that kid.
Look, I don't know what the hell took a bite out of her, but still, she's just a kid.
Carlos is faking
Worst
it.
case
He's
she
definitely not a
turns.
real
We can do
doctor. He took a first aid class in
So,
at a
what do you
summer
think,
camp
Miss
and is
Aurora?
like, I'm a doctor
Like
now.
that could be anything. Only one way to find out.
Not the staff desk.
We wait.
You got this, Allie.
By tomorrow morning, if the fever set in, we'll know if she's gonna turn. In the
He's got
meantime,
PhD in crystal
lock her in the
healing.
shed.
Oh no! Shove an amethyst
What
in
about
it.
my
You'll be
arm?
fine,
It
kid.
needs to get cleaned and stitched and
Oh
bandaged.
no.
The girl is
How you
in
stop
bad
a zombie
shape,
bite?
Carlos.
We have all that stuff inside the cabin. We could probably get by with
Alvin,
it.
please.
He's a doctor of
But, yeah,
music
okay.
studies. Even
I'm not
that he
wasting
flunked
supplies
out
on a
on.
local bite. If it turns out you're telling the truth, I'll clean
Carlos,
it. Dish it up for
please.
you in the morning.
But
Carlos is a
I'm
bastard.
sorry. It's the best we're gonna get.
What is that lady's
Finger
name?
off the trigger, son.
I ain't your son.
Don't be like that, man.
I don't
It's
remember her
all right.
name.
Boys got
I do
it.
remember. Do remember Luke's
Come on.
name.
This is just a waste of time. You'll see. And when she turns, I ain't gonna be the one cleaning up the
I
shit.
do remember really liking her husband.
it was a dog. You'll see.
I guess we'll find out in the morning.
If I last that long, maybe you could go look for it.
Hi,
I wish I could.
Ams. How's it going,
I
friend?
really
How are you
do, but it's too
doing?
risky.
I
Sorry.
love you too. Listen, you're delightful. But yeah, hi, friends. Hold on, I'm gonna drop my controller. Okay, but also, you're iconic. You're stunning. You're amazing, Ams. Listen.
Now the zombies can't grab you.
It's true. We can't get grabbed in here.
I mean, Sam says the same haircut as him.
Stunning.
You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
Just hang your arm up on the anchor. It'll be fine. Look, We can be twinsies anytime you want, alright? This sounds delightful and wonderful. But yeah, hi Yams, we love you. How's it going? We're playing Walking Dead. I got Fruity here with me today, and it's great.
I'm here.
Not much
It's me.
left in here.
I'm Fruity.
I guess if I have to, I can use this for stitches.
Oof! I hate this bit.
Yes, it's brutal.
This poor kid. You got this. Get all the things done? Maybe not all the things. Remember to take breaks. Remember to hydrate, especially if you're drinking coffee. But you got this. I'm telling you, just hook your arm onto the anchor and then pull back. Just do a very quick amputation here. It'll be great.
She knows that I was a dog and likes her out.
Yeah, but it'll prove to the group that she's metal as fuck. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and who needs 2 arms? Lee didn't.
Lee didn't? Look at all the things Lee did.
Even if you didn't cut it off, he only uses 1 for the whole episode.
He just wants to show everyone that he could do it. Ouch. At least we haven't stitched it up yet, because that definitely would have ripped it open. Oof.
Clem crying all the way through this bit's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
This
bit's rough.
And a lot, yeah.
So hey, if you don't like watching people perform surgery on themselves,
You'll be able to tell when that's gonna happen.
yeah.
So you got a minute. We need to like find all the gubbins first, but
But it's
fully
coming
understand if you don't wanna see that.
Right. Yep, there's the thank you again, Travis, for pulling it up. We do have the content warnings, as always. Because some of this stuff gets a little rough sometimes. We love it. Don't love watching Lee and Clem struggle and suffer, but
They have a doctor.
kind of do.
He's gotta have stuff for stitches.
Gosh, unbelievable.
It's for the story. Plot device. All right. This is gonna be horrible. Can I just? Can I look? Before I open, can I look? No, we're just going straight for it. Oh no. I mean, the door's the obvious.
I think it's getting worse.
Is the obvious choice. It's true. I loved Lee. And I loved how he, like, I don't know. He was a good dad.
Oh, jeez. Neither of us have played that one.
Yeah, if we can keep it spoiler free, that would be great. Because I haven't played season 3 or 4. And Fruity's in the same boat as I am.
Yeah, we've only played 1 and 2. And out of those, one better one.
Mm-hmm. But I do imagine, like, I don't know, being in a zombie apocalypse from the time that you're a baby until you're still a baby would be a little rough. Let's crack this bad boy open. Don't worry about him, Clem. Just open the thing up. Let's go. Perfect. What was that noise?
I thought that was on your end. What was that?
It was my phone. My dad is gonna be here in about 30 minutes. I forgot I had my phone on vibrate. I didn't want, like, the full ringtone to go off, but oof.
It won't take long. There's a few things we need to discuss.
I mean, I would still avoid, like, even vague comments, because that, I mean, people can sometimes, you know, figure it out just from the vagaries. We'll just keep it to
like
the
weird
episodes that we're
cryptic
on.
hint, but I don't think you said it bad.
I'm not a bite hider. Listen. If I'm not telling you about the bite, I'm walking away from the group as I'm not telling you about it. It's usually the, hey Kayshurrr, where are you going? Oh, nowhere. I'll be back later. Don't follow me. Stay over there. Don't worry about it. Slowly abandons everything in the middle of the road. This is fine.
Like Bert.
Just like Bert. Just slowly taking all of his clothes off because he's got a fever.
He was too hot.
He was way too warm.
Probably come looking for
I do miss Bert and Virgil.
Yeah. None of the other characters were as good. They just kept getting through them so fast.
Just kept doing it real bad.
Yeah.
It's fine.
My second favorite were the guy who ate all the poison berries.
Can't even remember his name.
No, he didn't last long. Got poisoned like 40 times and then died of berries.
So bad. Whoa. I like that I even like pointed out the poison ones to you to be like, hey, don't eat these, and you still ate them.
I just loved poison berries.
They're your favorite snack.
They have to have medical supplies.
That would be before I'd realised that you could have a pack that just straight up tells you, hey, this is poison, don't eat it.
It takes so many points to equip, though. It's horrible.
Yeah, don't bother. Just eat the berries. They're nice.
Just eat the berries. It'll be fine. Take Iron Stomach and eat the berries. You'll be perfectly fine.
I'll still need some bandages and something to keep it from getting infected.
You got this, Clem. Oh boy.
That man sometimes.
Poisonberry's got that good spice. that little bite that you really like.
Tastes like burning.
Why is my I like it when my tongue goes all tingly.
Just need to have this baby.
Ma'am, what's your name? Hey, what's your name?
Let it be okay, and let it be his.
Oh shit, I forgot about that whole bit! It has all come back to me. This is fine. Ma'am? What are you doing? It's time to get out of here. We gotta go! Oof.
You're not supposed to be in here.
Don't be a fucking narc, Sarah! Oh, I should have threatened her.
Don't make a sound. I'm just trying to fix my arm. Oh, what do you want? I need your help. My dad says I shouldn't talk to you. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Okay, bye!
Help me, and I won't
He's
tell
considering just not saying anything to her.
I'm hurt. Please help me. Well, I shouldn't. What happened happened to you? A dog bit me. Sounds scary. I bet it hurts.
There would be so many more deaths.
I mean, you do drain the blood out of people when you win at Tile's game.
Let me die. That's not true. Has he let people die
Why
before?
you can't pack yourself with extra blood before you start?
Clementine should have packed herself with more blood before she got bit by that dog.
Yeah.
Clementine, you idiot.
Something to clean it up.
It's okay, we can murder Sarah and pack her blood in us.
My dad says we're out of real bandages, but I know where to get something to clean it.
Consider getting rid of the dead weight.
I'll help you. Good. Thank you. I'm Sarah.
Just so often when you pick the silence one. You get so many awkward pauses, even if you're Batman.
She's old. And if her baby is a girl, it'll be forever before she's old enough to, like, be my friend. And then I'll be super old.
Girl, you're like 14.
If I help you, will you leave me alone? I don't want to get in trouble. I'll get the stuff my dad uses.
Just the void stare.
I think this is it.
I don't want her to think that we're friends because I just want stuff from her.
Don't worry, I won't.
And while I'm horrible, I'm not that horrible.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about that pause. I'm Sarah! What game is this? Global Menace! That was a horrible sound and I hated it. Look! It was an accident? Like, accidentally didn't give the dog any beans? That's mine now. This is our watch.
Not exactly bandages, but they should help stop the bleeding.
Clem doesn't want to play Risk. I don't know why. Probably got other things on her mind. Like this terrible wounded arm. Shall we go? I was wondering, is it gonna come back? Better come back. I'm gonna punch your internet, Fruity. I'm gonna do a big ol' fight on it. Discord. I mean, I'm gonna keep moving ahead, but like, I'm waiting. Dog just wanted food, and I did it bad. It's horrible. I do feel terrible about not giving the dog some beans, but also, it wouldn't have ended any differently. Dog would have still bit us. Also, this is the point at which we will be doing some self-surgery. So if that's not a thing that you're into, you don't like watching that, now's a good time to step away for a couple of minutes. Alright. Fruity, I'm gonna punch your internet, and I'm gonna punch your Discord. Go make some dinner, Luna! It's a good time. Oh, sweet baby. Oh.
Okay, I'm good. I'm fine.
Oh, internet.
Now the fun part.
Okay, hopefully Discord comes back here in a minute. Yeah, there's no... We're not... She's not removing her own appendix, but still pretty intense for like an 8-9-year-old to be doing. Or is she 10 at this point? She might be 10. Still a baby. Got it in one.
Now, just like last time. Just how Krista showed me.
Ugh. Oh, I hate this. Take a moment to breathe. At least she just pushed it through as opposed to, like, backing out. Oh, God. Oh, Clementine! ITK! We're just stitching up a dog bite! That's all! What was the camera doing there? Oh boy! Yeah, hey, reminder, this one is real rough. Oh, PC surgery game? Oh no. Was it one of the Flash ones? There was this Flash surgery game that I used to play a lot. I don't remember what it was called. Oh, Clementine! Are we done? Hey! Oh, you went in too deep! Is that it? We're done. Great, we've done it. Wrap that shit up. Ooh. Oof. Our poor baby. What a fucking champ, though. Oh, dang. Oh, dang! Oh, huh, take it. Whoa, game is freezing. What is happening? Everything's freezing. This is fine. Hold on. My computer is frozen up. Hang on a second. Computer, why are we doing this? Hey. Hey, game? Okay, I'm back. Yeah, no, doing peroxide again would be good. That'd be a good option. Not a winter storm. Freaking out my computer? Get him! Get him! Get him! I probably should have gone for the brick. It's true. It's not Fruity's fault. Hey! Got him with the anchor. Grab that. I grabbed it! I hit the button! Game said no. There's a lot going on. We have to do all this again. Okay, that's fine. I did say first season that we were gonna be messing up a lot and dying. I think I thought it was gonna be like this one, where it was all these really bad quick time events. Oh my god. Not the puns. Travis, please. Get him, get him. It is very wiggly, is what I'm noticing. Okay, well, this is fine. We can do this. Yeah, the sensitivity is like really, really high. It's fine. I can work with this. It also like snaps into place and then floats away is the issue. Oh, also.
Holy shit. What the?
There's a lot happening over here.
How the hell did it get in here?
Little girl's tough as nails.
Are you all right?
I'm still not bitten. I never was.
Same.
And you left me out here to die.
Quick time events are the devil.
Where'd you get that stuff?
Did she steal from us?
This doesn't change a thing. She hasn't done anything to us.
Says the man not carrying a baby.
You left me no choice.
You could have just left.
Relax, Rebecca.
Rebecca, that's her name.
Bring her in, and I'll take a look at her arm.
Also, Fruity, you dropped me from the call, but if your internet comes back and you want to hop back in, just let me know. Just as a heads up. Are we just not gonna... I didn't have any options there. I wasn't allowed to make any choices. Supper time. Ow. Fuck you, Carlos.
Their suturing skills need some work, but otherwise, I say she should be fine.
So it wasn't.
No, I mean,
It was. The
I
fever
got
had
dropped
already
out of the
set
call
in,
though.
the
Discord was
temperature
like,
through
"You've
the
been
roof.
sitting here by yourself for a while. You gotta be disconnected now." So I got dropped out of the call. But yeah, if your internet comes back, just let me know.
I wish you wouldn't have done what you did.
Fuck you, Carlos!
I was hurt.
Sorry, we're
You
gonna
weren't helping.
Because we considered you a
sass
threat,
everyone.
which you were. Maybe you still are.
No, I'm
This
not.
fucking guy,
We
though.
put you in that shed out of concern for the safety of our loved ones. And then you escaped and persuaded my daughter to steal from us. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but there are a few things you need to know about my daughter.
Okay.
She isn't like you. You may not get that initially, but once you're around her for a while, you'll understand. If she knew how bad the world is, what it's really like out there, cease to function.
Internet, please.
She's my little girl.
Please, internet.
all
I
I
need you
have
to
left.
work.
And I would ask that you stay away from her.
I just want to play my game with my friend.
She needs to grow up sometime.
You do not
Honestly,
know
though,
what she
Legis, fuck this guy.
Rebecca
Like,
was
I get
worried
wanting
you
to
might
try
be
and protect
working
your
with
kid,
someone
but
else,
also,
that your
like,
being
you
here
have
was
to
no
teach them how to,
accident.
like,
Guess
survive.
we'll find out. But one thing I know for sure.
Things have changed.
You are not to be trusted.
Fuck Carlos.
Stay away from my daughter.
He's like the antithesis of Lee, which makes me hate him.
Hey, brought you some food if you're hungry.
Yeah, please, internet. Internet, please. Internet, consider. Actually, this is a great time to
That's gonna leave one hell
to
of a
pause
scar.
because my dad just got here, which means my cat is here. Maybe this will give Fruity's internet a chance to come back. So we're gonna take a short break, and I'm gonna go get my kitty cat. So yeah. We will BRB. I'll have some words on stream for y'all if that's a thing you want to do. But yeah, be back shortly. All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're here.
I'm here, internet song.
Welcome back, Fruity. I have a sleepy cat in my lap. I say sleepy. She's high as fuck. Is what it is.
Sleepier than usual.
Honestly. Hi, Alice. We have a redeem from Voss for a hydrate. I can do that.
I got a drink. I got one while I were disconnected.
Good. Water is important. Here she is. Hold on. Just slowly lift her up. Look at She's incredibly floppy right now.
Oh no.
Hi. Yeah. She can barely walk. But that's just because she's incredibly dopey. But look at her.
She take nap right here.
She take nap right here. She had to get a couple of teeth removed today. And we haven't done any sort of anesthesia with her since she had her stroke. She is usually very floppy. She's even more floppy. Look at this. She's out. She's passed out already. She says I take nap right here. Oh, hi. Yeah. You smell like toothpaste. I mean, I guess that makes sense. You had your teeth cleaned. But the kitty cat is here. I'm gonna set you in my lap, okay? She's just a noodle.
Oh, jeez.
So noodly.
Weekly baby.
There you go. She's like, please stop. I just want to lay here. Hi, kitten. Everything is in its proper place. Fruity's back. Lamia's back. Everything is great.
I did check on Doug while I were away.
Is he also floppy?
He is in full potato mode on the settee, buried under the pillows.
Perfect.
Exactly as he should be.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I said we were gonna be done showing the cat off, but I'm sorry, Lamia. Her little spot on her belly usually looks a bit like a heart. She's got a little heart on her primordial pouch. It's a trap, is what it is. Okay, I'm done flopping you around, Llama. You're so patient right now, and I think it's because you don't have much of a choice. No, she's very good. I'm glad to have her back, though. All right, let me share the game with Fruity.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I don't need to watch the stream like the peasants.
You can get real-time response about what's going on.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable, Llama? Okay. That's the most important thing to me right now.
Better than losing it.
Oh, you can say that again.
I don't know what was being
Stars?
said. Oh!
They're way cooler than Stones.
Okay. I don't know, stumps could be cool.
What?
Nothing. I just had a friend who lost his arm once. That's all.
Just attach a machine gun to the stump like Barry Wallace.
Pretty sure something like that happened in Hobo with a Shotgun.
The worst guy in the Walking Dead TV show replaced his hand with a knife.
Oh, sorry, I didn't switch the game.
I got kind of.
Thank you, TK.
Definitely not cool.
Also, thank you for the lurk,
Nick's been known to go
Savannah.
off every once in a while. Don't hold it against
I got
guess we all
got too many things I gotta pay attention
you
to.
definitely had one out there.
You were way out of line. You shouldn't have pointed that gun at me.
Everything is fine. Here we
hurt
go.
and needed help, and that's how you treat me.
I was
I
just.
know what you were trying to do.
I'm gonna stop the game for a hot second
But that
so I can
doesn't
pull
make
up
it right.
sound
Put
controls.
aside because of you.
Nope.
Did it go away for you?
Whatever.
Or did it come back?
It came back. Am I the problem?
No.
Okay, cool.
Look,
I just
he
needed to
means
tap
well.
out for a hot second to
He
pull
just
up
loses it
my
sometimes.
sound controls.
I'm not sure if my volume would drastically change.
No,
Like it
no.
sometimes like stuff.
No, I just needed to make sure that I can change the game's volume at any moment. Cat tab.
So, since you're pretty much on your own, what's your plan?
Thinking about moving on. We don't want to stay with these losers.
Well, you're welcome to stay here if you want.
So sorry. She's like a
Let yourself heal
fucking
up.
brick in my
Take some time to sort
lap.
things out.
She's sleeping.
Yeah, she is.
They'll just have to deal with it. So.
Also, are we eating cereal? What are we
happens to your
eating?
parents? If you don't mind me asking.
Mound?
I mean, I
We are
assume
eating
what happened
Mound.
to them is
Mound
what
with
happened to
blue
just about everyone's
specks.
parents.
My favorite.
You're just so young. Didn't think you could have made it on your own for
It
so
kind of
long,
looks
but
like what they're trying to make
maybe you
Ethan
did.
eat at the start of Resident Evil 7.
It's tough.
Not the people
I lost my
gruel.
folks too.
Is it just some people girl?
Hey,
It might
I'm
be
sorry.
people gruel. Oh
Shouldn't have
no.
asked.
Also, TK Voss, how are you both doing? How's it going, friends? Oh, I almost didn't hit an answer
Parents went
there.
on vacation and
Too
left
busy
me with
asking
the
how folks were
babysitter,
doing.
and they never came back. We went to Savannah to find them,
Also, not
but they were already
wax.
dead.
Not the wax. Mommy, can I have my arm? You can.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh my god.
This man,
I had my arm under her head, right? So she was resting her chin on my arm, and I needed it back, so I like slowly moved it out from under her, but her head just flopped onto my lap. Oh, my sweet stoned baby. Yeah. Hi, kitten. Okay. Not cold,
means to care
sleety
of me.
weather.
we met up with other survivors, and we all tried to make it. But
Oof, and an infusion
It
appointment on top of it? Take care of yourself today, TK. Try and take it a little easy.
he taught me how to survive.
Woof.
He taught me
jeez.
how to shoot a gun.
Oh,
What
oh, I'm wiggling.
happened to him?
Here you go.
I killed him. He got bitten,
You
protecting
crunch
me,
munching on things?
and I had to kill him before
Can you
he
hear me
turned.
crunch munching?
Just a little bit.
Wow.
Just a tiny bit.
I'm sorry, I have a
I had
Kinder
to.
Bueno.
It's okay. This is
Smile!
the Kayshurrr stream, and I
hate to
got
interrupt, but I'm
got
out here
Fruity here
standing
with
watching.
me.
I can't help but
Hi,
notice
Smiley.
This place is lit up like a goddamn beacon in the middle
I
of
don't
the
believe it. You never get Cash and Fruity in the same stream.
Right?
Couple fresh brook
Need a bigger dang monitor to run it.
Can't contain this much awesome on a single monitor. It's probably best that you miss the self-surgery time. But hi, Smiley. We love you. But yeah, no, I'm glad you're taking it easy today. TK, I'm glad that you only worked a half day and you got a nap.
You're still
Good.
here.
Good. Yeah, this episode's really rough. I think we're past a lot of the, like, really particularly awful stuff.
I wouldn't get comfortable if I were you.
Yeah, I think we're relatively safe now. Back to normal. It's,
Right.
Whose baby is it?
But yeah, how are you doing today?
If it's
How's
not
it going,
Alvin's,
Smiley?
whose is it?
Alvin, that's his name. I love Alvin.
Fucking mouth.
You should probably think about being nicer to me.
I'm gonna threaten everyone.
That's
It's
just
gonna
my
be
advice.
great.
I knew you were going to be a fucking problem.
This fucking 9-year-old is
That
walking
would
over
be-
everybody.
Now go.
It was a good moment. It was a good silent moment.
How you holding up? I heard you got an earful from Rebecca.
I'm glad that you're doing better. And also, that's really exciting that you get to
Once
try
she
new
gets
stuff.
going,
What did you
there's
eat?
no bringing her back. Her bark's worse than her bite.
She's mean. I don't like
She's
her.
mean. I don't like her.
I'm doing good.
come
I
on a
have
little strong.
Lamia with me at the moment. She just got home from a vet appointment, and she's particularly
How
floppy.
floppy,
How far are
baby.
these fish
She's
traps?
so
It ain't
floppy.
much further.
She is passed the fuck out right now. My leg is falling
would teach
asleep,
you
and
how
this
to
is a
shoot?
problem.
By that I mean taught proper. Any idiot with a finger can shoot.
My friend Lee taught me.
That's good.
Clem, we can call him what he
Important
is.
nowadays.
He's Dad. Daddy Lee. Excuse me while I wipe my
Was
nose.
about your age. First time I took him hunting. Came across this beautiful 13-point
Also,
buck
like,
just standing there on the ridge line. The boy takes
melting
the
in
rifle,
my chair.
lines up the shot just like I taught him, and then I hear him start whining. He turns to me and he says, "I can't do it. I can't shoot it, Uncle Pete. Please don't make me shoot it."
What a baby.
Hey,
I don't actually
Why
mean
didn't
it,
you
but
wait?
also,
You want
fuck
us
Nick.
standing around while you piss on a tree? You know where the river is, boy.
I understand why he didn't want to shoot
So I
the
grabbed
deer,
gun out of his hand
but also
before the
fuck
big buck
Nick.
runs off, when bang, the gun fires. Boy nearly gut shot me. And of course, the buck gets away.
What are you going and telling her this shit for?
'Cause you almost blew her face off yesterday. Seems relevant. Trying to let her know it's nothing personal with you.
Why are you always giving me a hard time?
Because you're always giving everyone else a hard time.
Have you ever shot a
tried to
gun? I
apologize
killed
already.
my best friend. Does that
Can you
count?
blame her?
It's fine. He apologized.
We'll just
You're
we'll
always
just
trying
chill
to
everything
embarrass
down.
You're doing a good enough job of that on your own.
She's killed her best friend and also her arch
Leaving us
nemesis,
again.
and she's
I know where the
only
river is.
like 10.
Are you drooling on me?
So anyway, I found that buck later that season.
Why?
Shot it right in the neck. Brought it
Hold
up to
on
my
a second.
sister.
I do have to take a picture of her because she's being very, very cute. And I need everyone to see her.
Yeah, that's who I'm at.
Hi. Oh my god, she's so good. Hold on. I'm sorry. It's important that I get pictures of my cat while she's super stoned. What are you doing? I'm gonna post these in nice things so that everyone can see. I don't like doing this during stream, but like, this is a special
Urgent.
occasion. It is. It's extremely urgent. Look at her. Look at this little crunkly scrimbo child.
That's a crunkly scrimble right there.
That's a grunkly scrimbo. That's a chunky.
It's gobbling up your points.
She is drooling all over my leg. This is gonna be a fun night for us, isn't
Figuring
it,
she'd wanna
Llama?
freeze some of the meat. Nick didn't speak to me for weeks. Sometimes you gotta play a role, even if it means
Lamia
people
won't
above
remember this.
hate you for
She
it.
won't.
You should tell him that.
It's a funny joke because that's what the game says when you make
Uncle
choices
Pete.
like this. Like Pete will remember that, but it's funny because Lamia
Nick.
is high and she's not gonna remember anything come tomorrow. It's a
Jesus,
funny
damn,
joke,
jeez.
Fruity made. Sorry. I'm done. We're good. But hey, look,
Ah, full of
zombies.
holes.
Who do you think did this?
She did
Not
shoot
sure
that
yet,
super
but it
creepy
ain't your
kidnapper
average gang of
dude.
thugs, that much I know.
Her arch nemesis.
Think about it. You're
Best
Carver.
friend.
What do you do?
Who's Carver?
Carver.
Check those guys there. Be careful. Some of them might still be moving.
I'm just playing with Lamia's ears, and she does not care. It's very good.
What can I do?
See if you can find
I aspire
anything
to be
else.
this floppy someday.
Like what?
Like what might tell us who did this.
I aspire to be this high one day.
Oh no. Just let me be a floppy
This
mess.
one's shot too.
Be great.
Through the
Just
head?
drool all over everything.
Yeah.
Check the rest. And look for ammo. We're running low.
Lamia, I can't feel my leg. I thought Nick was Kenny for a second. He has that same, like, mullet going on.
Can I
I'm
help?
not. No.
I got it.
Travis, no. How do we get over there? I want to get over there. I want to go to there.
There are more out there.
This wasn't no rinky-dink pissing match.
We could do Batman. We could do Telltale Batman. That one still
Where you going?
exists.
We need to get the fuck out of here.
I would
Gotta
actually
check
kind of
the
be
rest.
down for that.
What?
I think it would be funny.
Calm down and think about it, son.
Calm down. We gotta get out of here now.
Jesus
It's a shame
Christ,
about
get a hold of
Patton
yourself.
Oswalt, the
Nick's
Square
right.
Man.
This doesn't look
Right?
good.
I wonder
No,
if we
it
could
don't.
find,
One of
like,
these folks might still be alive, and they
a
might just
maybe
be
not
inclined
so
to tell us
legal
who did
version
this.
of that.
We gotta do this now. Stay
And by
here.
that I
Keep
mean a
searching
completely
these.
legal, above board
This is a dumb
sort
idea.
of situation.
You know, Nick, I don't like
Yeah,
this
just
either.
find a floppy
But
disk
sooner
with
or
it,
later
still
you're gonna
on.
have to realize a simple truth.
What, that you're an asshole?
That nobody in this world is ever gonna give a goddamn whether you
My
like
general
someone or not.
stance is that
You gotta
there's.
grow up, son.
I mean,
Whatever.
I don't really care about piracy, but if they
wanna
won't sell you the
be
game,
people look out
then
on that tree line.
piracy is super
Whoever
fun.
did this
Right?
might still be out there.
No,
Waiting
Patton
for another
Oswalt was
sucker to
Steve.
Stumble across this mess, just like baiting a fish.
I'd be more.
I wish
useful
Patton
if
Oswalt was
No
Batman.
doubt.
How
some
great
point,
would
you
that
guys have to
be?
trust me.
Hell, I trust you, but not everyone's at that point yet.
He was the
Look,
the little
just keep
horse.
it
He was
going.
happy in hit TV show Happy. It was very good.
Do love Patton Oswalt.
Same.
Hope this isn't anyone you
Like I'm goofing because he was the Minecraft man, but I do love Patton Oswalt.
He's very good. I love this voice acting era for him right now.
Damn it.
Over the
On
last
that
like
side. You check
I don't
out
know,
these
like 8
ones.
years or
See
so
if
it's
there's anything
been.
on them that'll tell us who they were.
He's great. Oof. All right. Time to look at corpses. Lamia, I would love to like set you on the bed, but I feel like you're gonna be wiggly over there. But I can't feel my leg, Llama. That's our bag. I thought that was you coughing for a second. But it sounded so far away.
I'm not bit. I'm not hiding anything. Don't worry about it.
You
Answer
were
the
in
goddamn
woods with
question.
Krista, the woman I was with.
She's gonna be
What
wiggly
happened
wherever
to
I
her?
put her.
Please.
I just don't want her to be wiggly
Tell
on the
me.
bed because she'll fall
Tell
off.
me.
And the last thing she needs is head trauma. No water. You're dying. I'm
I
not
want
wasting.
people who aren't dying.
It's for people who aren't destined to be zombies. Get out of
Yeah, you
here.
should probably finish him off.
Right?
Pete!
Oh,
I'm
hi.
fine. I'm fine. Just lost my footing. Damn it. God
Hey,
damn
that's a
it.
bite. Hey, that's a bite.
Lurkers! I'm out of ammo. Come this way.
Bitch.
Damn it! You get your asses over here, both of you!
Fuck.
We gotta get out of
Fuck.
Cheating
Just-
this. Look at this. Ridiculous.
I have to move Lamia. Listen.
Okay. Sure you do.
I have to move her. I can't feel my leg, Fruity. Okay, look at her. She's so floppy.
Don't need legs to to make the decision.
Flop, flop, flop. Hey, I'm gonna set you down here, okay? Look, it's your blanket. Look, it's your blanket. Hey. Hold on, it's gonna take a second. I have to convince her to lay down. You have to lay down, Mommy, if you can't walk. Oh. You're so funny. Oh God, you're gonna fall. Oh no. Hey. Here. You wanna lay under the desk then? I don't know if you can see her
We can
flopping
see
over
it.
there. Oh God. Okay. You wanna...
You can see it teetering on the edge of the
Oh.
bed.
Hey. I'm gonna put some food down for her. Sorry. Sorry.
Nah, it's fine. Go look after
It's true.
the baby.
My sweet, sweet, wibbly wobbly baby. Yeah, there's the water. Hey, look. We're definitely gonna go head first into this can of food, but that's okay. Here. There you go. Yeah. You haven't eaten since yesterday. Get some food in you, it'll help. Okay. Alright. Now back into the panic.
Yeah.
Oh, smiley blanket on the ground. That's actually kind of that's ingenious. I do have her lettuce blanket under the desk. So maybe... Yeah, maybe I'll lure her over with the smiley blanket as well. Double
Cunning.
blanket. Travis smart. Travis animal smart. Oof. Just put that down in a little circle. A little smiley donut, if you will. Maybe she'll come over when she's done eating. Okay. Who do we want to save? Oh, I thought that was gonna...
Can't you listen to me once? Just one time?
The guy's bit, but we do hate Nick.
It's true. Okay, we're going for Pete.
I'll cover you.
Go! Go! Why are... I need to stop just looking! Clementine, do something. Clementine, do something. Hit Pete! Or hit the arm. That's fine. Did he just beat him with his own arm?
I think he just beat him with his own arm.
Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, Smiley, are you okay with being on the floor for a minute? Get to keep Lamia company. I think that's pretty awesome. Okay, good. Okay, fine. Also, it's... Oh, did we really already just... This one was only 2 hours long.
What are you gonna do?
What the heck?
This might be during the
Someone's outside.
crunch era of
Yeah.
Telltale.
That makes
Someone
sense.
came here looking for you.
Hold
A
on.
man.
What? Did he say what his name was?
We know damn well who it was.
It's getting warm. I needed my hoodie off.
One of the guys we were with before.
Well,
What's he gonna do?
we can go ahead and start the next one. If you're up for
Yeah.
it.
I'm up for it.
Let's go!
I can't keep going.
I figure we got about
Have you considered being less
5 more
pregnant,
days to reach those
Rebecca?
mountains.
We ain't here to rob nobody. Just relax and put the gun
Like
down,
with...
man.
With,
Suck it back in.
right? Just say no more.
I think you were dead.
Who could it be? Like with, what's her face?
Ben Paul's back and he's mad.
No, not Ben Paul. Not Ben, Paul. These are all very 50-50, and I hate that.
Yeah.
Who is it? Krista. With Krista, it's like, I understand. Like, she probably got knocked up before everything happened. And like, you know, it's fine. It happens. Whatever. But it's like, girl, Rebecca, you made a choice. We are well into like a year into this whole situation, and you are very pregnant. I just want to skip this, but it won't let me, so I am turning it down in case the music is copywritten.
It's been like 2 years since like the start of zombies, right?
Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Cause like it's been 16 months since Lee died. And I think they had been at it for probably like a good 6+ months.
Yeah, it'd been a few months. There were like time skips between the episodes.
So like, it's been a while. I don't know. I just wanna... Come on. This is fine. I like how Carlos's voice actor's name is Kid Beyond. That's a name.
It's a good name.
That's a hell of a name. I like it.
Dang.
He does have a good voice, but fuck Carlos.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Let's go.
Come on, words, go off the screen faster.
Go faster. They knew that we were skipping them in the first game, so they're like, we're actually making the credits mandatory now. You have to sit here and watch
copyright
these.
music during them. That's why we're skipping them.
Right? Listen. Mama. She's wibble wobbling over here. Hey.
Oh no. Llama, please lie down.
Come here, baby. No, we're doing the circle thing. Okay. Going to encourage her to come on over here. Hey, Llama. You should probably not be eating the hard food. She's just licking. Here, you want this one? Okay. Well, I assumed that you wouldn't do it if it hurt, so... Gummy eye support? I mean, I didn't choose it, but it seems fitting. I don't know what I was expecting. I just put out her food. Come here.
I thought you were just trying to lure with the food.
If I just put it all out, maybe she'll eat something. Come here. Hi. Just thinking about it. Okay, she is figuring out this walking thing a little better, so.
Okay.
I think she just needed to work on it a little. Remind herself how to walk. Which, same. I gotta do that sometimes. Also, I should probably bring this back.
Wait till we get up to Wellington, then talk to me about Cole. I'm gonna go.
Does Krista just disappear from here on out? She's just gone now.
Bullshit.
Krista, run!
Whoa!
Don't want to like. I don't remember Krista showing back up.
I also don't remember her showing back up, but it just like, I don't know, it's just so sudden. Like you've just met Krista and Omid, and now we're here, and it's like, okay, they're gone now. It's like, oh, all right,
So,
cool.
Like the best ones.
pretty much on your own.
I loved them.
I'm thinking.
I mean,
about
Omid
moving on.
obviously had to go. He was too lighthearted and
stay here if you
perfect.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Funny
No.
man.
You're
Funny man
Barbara,
always
what are you?
has to go. It's those are
Carver?
just the rules. I hate them, but they're the
You are in the
rules.
woods with Krista.
That's what they said about Bert and Virgil, and look at them now.
They're dead.
Fine. I'm fine.
They're dead.
Just lost my
This follows the rule.
Damn it. God damn it.
Which one was the funny man?
Damn it, you can
Both
definitely
funny man.
Oh! we had a duo going on.
I think so.
I'd accept that. I'd roll with it. Oh, you found the cat box! Good job, BB! Incredibly wobbly. Oh, bye,
We have
Nick!
to go.
Let's go, Pete. His hobble! Gotta waddle away. That's definitely... I would say that definitely seems like what the show is like. There are lots of non-assholey characters in this.
It's the comics are very grim.
I mean, yeah, that... yeah. It's just all bad all the time.
Zombie apocalypse kinda
They shouldn't be able to get through.
kinda not fun.
On the downside, we
Can you do a
Not a-
different one? I don't know about the zombie apocalypse.
Not a good time. Not
Not
enjoying
great.
it. Hey, Pete, so,
What are you looking at?
you got bit, buddy.
Staring ain't polite.
What are you going to do?
Does the game sound okay?
Hand me that there.
Whether to me or chat, it's fine to me.
Everyone. No pizza Give him the saw. No pizza parties or Taco Tuesdays! Also, no bee apocalypse. No bee apocalypse. Horrible, awful bees. Hey, you should probably do a tourniquet first, my guy!
Also, why are you doing it that high up and diagonal?
Out like a stuck pig. What are you gonna do? Carry me out of here on your back?
She's done
Well,
it before.
I was gonna say, we have carried a grown-ass man around before.
Just give me a minute.
Try to get some rest.
You're probably a little less beefy than Lee is. Lee was all muscle.
I'll try to find something to help.
Not a total doof. He just plays one on TV. What a goober. I was trying to search the box and not come up here, but okay. I wanted to look here. Game. Those are cigarettes.
Anything we can use? Give me one of those. Probably tastes like pine tar by now.
Do you want some tobacco?
Got a light?
The eye roll, though. What if we just stand here?
I'll just be frozen in time forever.
That tastes about as bad as
That's how we save him.
Now what?
We just do that until they invent a zombie cure.
Pete, we're gonna have to stand here for years. I hope you're ready. Those things will kill you. Pete, don't you know smoking is bad for your health? Who's wheezing? Is it Pete? Is Pete wheezing?
Wasn't me.
Could be Lamia. Lamia's been
Could
known to
be.
wheeze. Speaking of, where did she wander off to? It's Pete. Pete's wheezing. Pete's gone a little veiny! Hey, Pete? You good? Where did the...
Is there anything else we could hit him with?
I'm gonna poke him. Just make sure to hit him with the sharp side.
It's just gonna break. Not a good zombie weapon, in my opinion.
It's not. It's not ideal. I could beat him with a pack of cigarettes.
I feel like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack.
That's too much shit in a sack.
Jesus.
Gross.
Stuck in this can the whole damn day. You want to hear something funny? I've been thinking, and I don't want to die.
This is a good joke. Oh, bud.
I never thought I'd be the kind of idiot to say something like that. But there it is. I'm scared, Clementine.
I wouldn't know my stand-up show with
I'm
it.
scared.
Everyone ends up like this.
You never think it's gonna happen to you.
Definitely not a crowd pleaser.
Would you promise me you'll watch out for Nick?
Pete, I hate Nick.
I love that stupid kid. No matter what you think.
Can't promise anything, he kinda sucks.
I can't make any promises.
You made your choice.
I might be.
Been almost a day. They ain't gonna find us.
The glare.
Where are you going?
He's gonna draw the zombies away for us. Because he's a good man.
I'm not getting out of this.
Llama.
You're gonna have to make a break for it. I'll buy you some time.
Nah, he has to stay.
You go find my nephew now, right?
I'm not gonna argue with anyone who's willingly gonna sacrifice themselves for us, so...
Wait for my signal. And run straight to the woods. Just keep moving, all right?
Clementine's cold-blooded. She doesn't care. She'll kill a man.
Let's get this over with.
Oh no. Right analog. Oh! I almost did it bad. It's fine. Bye, Pete! Thanks, pal. I think I left the saw back there for you.
What if he was the chosen one and he was immune to the bite but got cigarette poisoning from the one cigarette?
Oh no. We've ruined everything.
Clementine, are you alright?
Fuck you, Carl.
Luke's not with you?
Where's Alvin?
What happened? It's been hours. Where are they?
Pete got bit.
What?
What happened?
Walkers.
I told Pete got bit.
God.
Where were you?
Carlos,
Where were
listen.
You exactly.
Down by the stream.
We gotta go.
Just hold on a minute.
My husband is still out there. Get the guns.
Rebecca, chill.
Luke and Alvin went out looking for you. I told them not to go. Damn it, Luke.
I thought that was a plank of wood for a second.
Please
That definitely looked like a wooden gun.
Distract her, and don't tell her anything.
Well, we should go with you.
It's too dangerous.
Carlos.
You'll be safe inside. Just don't open the doors for
All
anything.
the other assassins
We'll
are
be
gonna
back
make
soon.
fun of me.
Right? Hold on a second. I'm gonna check to see what Lamia's doing. Kitten! She's just eating food. Okay. Sounded like she was trying to jump somewhere. I think she might have just slipped. It's okay. Just want to make sure she doesn't break anything. Herself or herself. Let's be real. She's not gonna break anything but herself.
Say
Oh,
cheese.
mama. Fuck you.
I found this under the house. There was all kinds of old stuff.
She's
Sarah.
gonna fall into your
It's so
priceless
cool.
Ming vase and destroy it.
Come on,
Terrible.
You shouldn't scare people like that.
We're just gonna
Sorry,
be
I just wanted to cheer you up.
terrible to Sarah, and I don't feel awful about it.
Isn't this the best?
No.
What's wrong? Where's my dad?
Hey, a bunch of people just died. That's definitely Lamia trying to jump up on the things. I'm sorry. Hey,
No, you gotta look after your cat.
come here.
She's sleeping.
She is wibbly wobbly and wiggly. Look at this. Look at this wiggly cat. Look at this
She's
wiggles.
wibbly wobbly.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. There you go. No, you have to stay here. Llama,
Please.
come here.
Behave.
She's not gonna. Oh boy, what am I gonna do with you? I got the Ming
You're
vase.
scaring me. You should know what's
I'm
going
gonna tell
on.
her.
He
Okay.
told you not to tell me, didn't he? He
Yeah.
is in trouble. Oh my gosh. What happened?
Oh my gosh.
Clem? Pete's dead. Sorry, I just need to...
How have you survived this long? She's reading The Gurgles,
Not
by the way.
gurgle.
In case you were wondering.
You want to see what I found?
With
Is
two
it The
U's.
Gurgles? Oh. Oh shit!
Will you show me how to use it?
First off, get
I
your
can
finger
find
off the
words.
trigger.
If something's wrong, I should know. What if I have to use one?
Okay, but it's not a toy.
Anything to
know.
piss off Carlos.
First, remember, it's just a thing.
What does that mean?
She's giving Lisa advice.
I don't
she is.
know.
I thought it'd be heavier. Okay. What do I do?
The most important thing is...
Not hold
when
it
you go to
like
shoot,
that.
Take a breath before you pull the trigger. Not that big.
What should I shoot?
Hey!
Do that. Sorry.
Oh my god.
Maybe I could practice outside. There's
Oh
that
my
too.
god.
She's gonna shoot
Hey,
herself
what's
and
that?
everyone else.
Yeah, she
Except
is.
whoever she's aiming at.
Except for the moving bottle. Everyone else will die, though. I regret this decision. Here I was being like, oh, this is gonna make Carlos so mad. I have just signed everyone's death sentence. Oh,
We're all doomed.
this is it. Honestly, like, there are definitely just some people that should not hold a gun. Don't even look at it. Don't even think about it. Man.
That's not Luke. Clem, I think I know him. He can't see me. You have to make him go away. Go and find somewhere to hide.
Probably should have asked her who it was, but, you know.
Clem, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Shh.
He can see you, by the way. Excuse you.
There.
Get out of here, now.
Is that how your dad taught you to greet a neighbor?
I've got a gun.
A smart girl. I would too. But I'm not a bad guy, honey. Promise you that. My
Any
family
man
and
who
I
calls
set
me
up rooms
honey
downriver.
is a bad
I'm
man.
surprised we haven't run into each other yet. What's your name? Hello, I'm sorry to disturb you. I only need a couple
This is
minutes
horrible.
of your time.
I wish I
Yeah.
could shoot him now. Just immediately.
This is a nice place. Is there anyone else around? You don't usually see cabins this big out here. Sure could pack a lot of folks in there.
Sir, you give me cop vibes.
Hey, you can talk
Which
to me, all right?
means
I'm not gonna bite
I don't
you.
say shit.
Well, I'll cut to the chase.
You
I'm
have
out
to
looking
say
for
if
my
you're a
people.
cop.
You
They've been gone a long while, and
Sir,
I'm worried
you
they
have
might
to
have gotten
legally you
lost.
have to tell me if you're a cop.
Maybe you've seen them. A couple of farm boys and an old man. Spanish guy and his daughter. Quiet girl. Bit taller than you. Big black guy. This big. And a pretty little pregnant lady.
Why did this last so long? I thought my game froze.
It was very good.
It's- Please. Game, I don't know that silence is a valid answer.
A lot of plates for one person. Looks like a tornado ran through here.
I don't ever do the dishes.
Yeah, well, believe me, I don't either.
I do that when I'm feeling particularly
passing
antisocial.
through, you've been
When people
here
do
a
that
while.
thing where they're just like
Listen,
waiting for
kid,
you to
I hope
speak.
you're not
Well,
one of
if I'm
those
quiet, they'll have to say something. No, I can wait longer than you can. We'll stare at each other all day. It's fine.
Where does this go?
No responses. Will not answer.
Lee just
Well,
gets
this is
it.
a real nice place. Kind
I mean, sometimes you just need to not talk to people, and my my least favorite is when they
Silence
just
is
don't get
always a valid
I
response.
knew a guy that always wore shirts like this.
it. What if they just
Doctor.
stay there and keep talking to you?
Real smug son of a bitch. But a smart man.
And that chessboard,
miss
there were a
him.
pawn on the back rank.
You would notice.
Can't go there.
Well, well.
Hi!
Mike's in trouble.
Come here.
No, it's not.
3 moves away from checkmate.
It's not a real game.
What was that?
Mama. You were here 2 seconds ago. Where did you go? How do you vanish this quickly?
I thought you said nobody's here.
I didn't say anything, actually. Oh my god.
You were mistaken, sir.
I thought you said. Mm-mm. No said. Only stared. Don't look at her, you're gonna give her away.
I told you, nobody's here.
Seems
Clementine!
that way.
No
Didn't mean to
speak.
be rude. Couldn't just leave you here with a good conscience if someone was poking around, right?
Sure.
Sarah, you fucking idiot.
Who's this?
Must be someone who lived here.
Must be.
Taking the photo felt too
You
incriminating.
have no idea who these people are, do you?
Just take the photo and then eat it.
Yes.
Who's who?
If you don't know who it is, then you don't mind if I eat the picture, right? Fun fact. Carver grabbed too small a slice.
Oh no. Oh no.
Well, I think I've troubled you long enough.
It's gonna get mud pie everywhere.
Too much mud pie.
No wonder Clem didn't want him in the house.
Right? She just knows. She looks at this man and goes, that's a man who grabs too small a slice.
Where is he? He's gone. What if he comes back?
We won't be here then. We're leaving, Sarah. We're going. It's time to go.
We need to find the others. We can't go outside.
Clementine.
Hey, I found the others.
Sarah.
They told me about Pete. You know where he is, right? Come on, let's go.
A man was here.
What?
What did she say?
Someone came to the cabin.
What?
Clementine talked to him.
And you just opened the door for him?
Calm down, Rebecca.
Calm down? I am calm. You calm down.
He was coming in either way.
I told you not to open the door for anyone.
Bitch!
Did he say his name? Did he say what his name was?
Maybe it wasn't him.
You know damn well who it was.
I didn't ask his name.
You didn't ask his name? How could you not ask his name?
He had a gun. I didn't want to make him mad.
Look, Clem, just tell us what he looked like. What was he wearing? Did he sound different?
He had a big brown coat.
I'm trying to remember what he looked like because I have already forgotten.
Fur. He talked about you,
He was a
Dad.
bad man.
You're not gonna hurt anyone, are you?
Of course he won't, Sarah.
He sounded like a
Dad's the nicest
cop.
man I
That
know,
is.
which is why he's not going to do anything crazy.
That's all I
or
know. I've
not
forgotten what he
nice,
looks like, but I know he
right?
sounded like a cop.
You know these are bad people, sweetie. They will do or say anything to hurt us.
You look like a normal bad man.
Did it seem like he'd be coming back?
He saw a picture.
Picture a bad man.
What were you doing taking pictures?
That's it. That's him right there.
Carlos,
What?
you need to calm down. All right, you're scaring your daughter.
It was Sarah's idea.
I don't care whose idea it was.
She got up onto the bed.
He was.
I have to give her her blanket. Lamia demands it. Here!
Good job, Lamia. Please lay down now.
Right? Here you go. Cozy, cozy. Here. Baby. Hey. Hey, you hopped up here and you got onto your blanket. So here's your other blanket. Oh, no, you want to be over there in those blankets. Okay, I see. I understand. That makes sense, I guess. You just wanna be where
Lamia
you're
only wants to go to the place you don't want Lamia to go.
basically. So sweetheart. It's fine, as long as she lays down. I just need her to lay down. That's all. It's like, I'm going to sleep where you sleep. I have I have her Angry Birds blanket set next to, like, where I lay down. And that's usually where she, like, goes and hangs out, and she's happy with that. No, she's like, No, now she's moved over to the... Oh my god, okay, whatever. That's fine. You do you, Lamia.
Darling, we got lucky. He wasn't expecting to find us.
It's fucking
Clementine
cat.
must have surprised him. If she hadn't been there.
She's just staring out the window.
Well, he was too smart to stick around, but he'll
It's
be
fine.
back with the rest. We don't have much time.
This is fine.
He's right. Everyone pack up. We're moving out.
Alvin, wait.
My tea is cold now and it's sad.
We have to leave now, sweetie, before he comes back with
This is
more
tragic.
bad guys. But it's gonna be okay.
It's still
Just
delicious,
go get
but
your
it's not
things.
warm.
Why did you leave his camp?
Because we had to. Clem,
Just lay
I don't know what he told you, but William Carver is a dangerous man. He's the leader of a camp not far from here, and he's very smart. We were lucky to escape. Look, I'm sorry to involve
like the fact that
you, but
Carlos,
now that he's
like,
seen you, you'll be
talks
safer
down
with
to
us.
Clementine,
We have to leave.
like, uses extremely simple words and, like, doesn't really
have to
explain the
find Pete.
situation.
We'll
it's just
get him
like,
on the way out,
he's a
Nick.
bad man. It's like,
Clementine,
no, tell
you know where he
me.
was, right?
Yeah.
What did he
All right.
do?
Everybody grab your stuff.
I need
Let's hit the road.
information so we can be prepared. Carlos. Shelter your daughter all you want.
Yeah, you said it was just up here?
Yeah,
But,
they're really strong at that
It's a
door.
little ways.
Honestly.
They have ruined her. She
Sorry
is
if I gave you some
useless
shit
now.
back there. Just a little on
Hey,
edge.
your kid?
She's
just
Ben
broken.
Paul now. You've Ben Paul your daughter.
You and
Oh,
Alvin can probably relate.
not.
It's okay.
That's
If it's
why
not
I
you I'm
hate
yelling at
her.
lately,
That's
then
why
I'm
I
really
hate
in
her.
trouble.
I can handle it. I'm not a little kid.
I felt the same way. My dad
Hi,
was always
Gucky.
giving me shit.
But yeah, it's just like,
And
he
I
makes it
always
sound like the
thought,
problem is that
you
Carver
know
is
my
smart,
dad
and it's
and-
like, I
know
need
you did your best
to
back
know what the issue is.
You know,
What
none
has
of
this
us would
man
make it on
done?
our own. Sometimes it's hard.
I don't
to
remember who
just
got
stop
you a sub. I
depending
think
on
it was
everyone.
Allie?
I'm not used to that. I'm not comfortable with that.
Don't remember.
I'm supposed to be a
But hi,
mom
Gucky.
soon.
Now you
Guess I need
have
to work on my
now you have all of our lovely little emotes.
Alvin and I still
How's it going,
don't know what to call
friends?
her.
How are you
Or
doing?
him if that man gets his wish.
Hi, Cookie.
Me.
I have Fruity with me. It's great. Oh, Clementine is walking away. I also was not listening to Rebecca. Friends showed up. I got distracted.
There. That's where we were.
This is totally okay. Sorry, I thought I was hearing something. I think it's in the game. We appreciate lurks. Always, always appreciate lurks. But it's
He's
nice
not
to
in
see
here.
you too.
This was the last place I saw him.
Maybe he's around here somewhere.
No, he's dead.
He
Y'all.
was bit. I mean, we've told him he was bit.
Keep your eyes open and
I'm
stay
pretty
inside.
sure we did.
Like the first thing you said, I think.
Yeah.
What else you definitely told?
Oh. Oh. I think we found where he went.
We found bits of him.
We got streamer friends here.
Oh, oh. Let me do a shout out.
Anyone see him?
Thank you, Fruity. Gonna wait to reveal.
Yeah.
Pete. Oh. But yeah, if none of you follow Gucky yet, you should, because Gucky is delightful and wonderful and very funny. And plays Elden Ring all the time. I think I've heard Gucky describe themselves as a variety streamer, playing games such as Elden Ring, and also Elden Ring.
He didn't have a gun.
Got
Who
shot.
did this?
Son of a bitch.
I don't know anyone
We
aside
need to
from you
go.
who plays tile game.
No one plays
Leave
tile
on.
game.
Yeah, he's gone.
I'm sorry.
We gotta get moving. Come on, man.
But yeah, Gucky's delightful. And it's their birthday tomorrow.
I don't know what Cookie's birthday.
It's Gucky's birthday tomorrow.
Tell me how it happened.
We're almost
He was scared.
birthday buddies.
Scared? My uncle?
He got
Oh
bit.
god, it's your birthday and he's saying this all in it. I forgot.
Fuck
It's
you.
the Saturday.
No way.
So bad at remembering people's birthdays.
That's
off.
fair. I only remembered because people started telling me that my birthday was coming up, and I was like, oh, I should do something for that.
I remember my one. I don't remember any other person's one.
Keep an eye on him for me, would
Remember
you?
your birthday.
You sure you still want to come with us? Look, I know we got off to a rough start.
Yeah, I'm with you guys.
And
No,
we're
but
glad
that's
to
fair.
have
I
Not everyone
am
is.
also very bad
Well,
with dates.
you. They'll get there. I figure we got
It's
about 4
fine.
or 5 days to reach those mountains.
It's fine.
Now,
It's
if
fine.
they're tracking us, we should
Figure
be able
everyone
to
will
lose them.
remind me when their birthday
5
is.
days?
I
Oh,
wanna
I remember
celebrate-
Sam's as well,
gonna be
because
okay,
it
We have to keep
was
moving.
born on Friday
It's our
the
only choice.
13th.
Hey! Of what month, though?
October.
Hey! That's a hella Friday the 13th. Thank you for the lurk, TK. Happy doing what you're doing.
Chink's Sam brother is the Antichrist.
Maybe. Possibly.
It's possible. I've tasted his cooking. Sam brother's cooking is extremely good. Please, if you hear Sam brother, don't stop cooking for me. It's very nice.
I have heard about how good
passable?
Sam brother cooking
I think
is.
so.
Good. Here, eat this back.
But we're almost out.
It's true. If Nicholas Angel asked what year your birthday was on, you could say every year.
There's a little house by the bridge.
So we're
How
gonna
big
watch.
is it?
We're gonna watch Shaun of the
Pretty
Dead and
small.
Hot Fuzz on Sunday, right?
So we're watching Muppets.
That's
There's
on
a
Friday.
lift or
Alright, that's
something.
Friday Horror Fest.
Must be that
That's
ski
Friday,
resort.
Sunday Horror Fest.
Never
Sunday,
been
Sunday
skiing.
Horror
Back in
Fest
I went once.
is
It
for
wasn't
sure
pretty.
Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
There's a building on the mountain.
What's it look like?
Enough was a can
It's
if we.
big.
That sounds like a good place to spend the night.
And I need to see where I can find Muppets
We
Treasure
have to cross
Island
that
for
bridge.
streaming.
Let's go.
Oh, jeez. Is
Hold
it
on
tricky?
now. We can't
It
all go
might be.
sprinting across
I don't know that
thing,
I've seen
okay?
it
We
on
get spotted
anything.
Out there, we're gonna be trapped.
Going around that lake will take
And-
too long.
Right, but look, we've got
Oh,
no
Emperor's New
idea
Groove
who's
would be
out
on
there.
Disney Plus,
Okay, I'm
wouldn't
gonna
it?
sneak across, make sure it's clear before we bring the whole group over.
You think splitting up
Again?
the
Gonna
group
have-
is a good
I'm
idea?
gonna have to do some planning.
I never said it was a good idea, but it's better than risking everyone at once.
What's your plan?
Clem and I can scoot across slow and slow,
Yeah.
make sure nobody's
Wait,
waiting for us
Muppets
on the
or
other side.
Emperor's New Groove?
We'll have a tough time covering you from back here.
Are Muppets
Well,
owned by
we'll just
Disney
turn
now?
back if it gets hairy.
What doesn't Disney
Everything
own?
is owned by
Stay
Disney.
here.
She's what?
She's just a little girl.
Oh,
She's a valuable.
I'll keep that in
little girl.
mind.
I mean, hell, if she
Um,
can sew up her own
I can do
arm,
it.
she's fit to cross a bridge.
I can do it.
See?
Muppets is owned
No
by
problem.
Disney. Dang.
It's Disney
It's gonna
Plus.
be
It's
fine.
on Disney
We'll
Plus.
signal you guys
Okay,
in 10
okay.
minutes. Just watch for a light at the far side.
I can go too.
Gonna have to
You stay with the group.
see if I can get my
I'm
Disney
fine,
Plus
I
login
don't
stuff.
like this.
Yeah, well, when's the last time you liked
I
them?
would watch. I would watch a
If
zombie
something happens, I'll
apocalypse
cover
movie
you.
if it had the Muppets in it. Like honestly, in a heartbeat.
Just all the Muppets
Sorry
like
about
sawing the leg off the one human character.
Right now, I don't trust Nick to tie his own shoes. They're just still on edge after the
They
Carver
have to.
thing.
Somebody has
It's
to
been
saw
5
the arm
days.
off
Why would
of
Carver
themselves,
still be
like the arm
following
that is
us?
using, controlling them.
It's the
It'd be
most important
horrible,
thing in this world.
but I'd love it. It'd be very good.
What does everyone want? Even the gangs. What do you think
Food.
they're all after?
Food.
Nope. Listen, what's the one thing a guy would walk hundreds of miles to get back?
Safety.
Close. Come on. Clem, it's family. It's a tough world out there without people you can trust.
I don't know.
Anyways, you can ask Rebecca, okay? I'm not going to get in the middle of it. We've all made mistakes. Done things that we regret.
Seems like we're already in the middle of it.
Tell me about it.
Stretch. Okay. Zombies. It's fine. They're not even looking. Okay, maybe that one is looking a
True.
little too
Too
hard.
much noise.
Let's take them.
One's just a little guy.
I want the tall one.
I'll take the big one. You get Shorty.
No!
Wish we could use...
I'll take the
I've got
big one.
Hey, kid. Look, it's not like I don't know you have guts, but are you crazy?
Maybe I am.
Stick with the plan, okay?
Not prepared. What are you gonna fucking do about it, Luke? Okay, I'll stick with the plan. I don't want us to get bit. Oh,
Go
my
ahead.
hammer's stuck.
That's a good pull. It should come free.
Luke!
No, I've done it
Showing
before,
yourself up in
remember?
front of Luke.
In a shed.
Thought you were a cool guy until now.
Look, I'm still a cool guy. Okay?
Nice
I'm,
work, kid.
I'm still cool.
Ow.
Luke's over here trying to be a big brother to me, and it's like, no, I just want Lee back. Luke, I just want Lee back. Cries. Zambies. I'm so stompy.
Shit.
Well, we did a very bad job of clearing out the zombies at the start of the bridge.
How did I miss that guy?
Whoa! there?
I'm okay. I'm stuck.
I can't reach.
It's okay.
You can have one Muppet in your zombie survival group. Which Muppet do you pick? You have to have one Muppet.
Animal.
I mean, animals are... Animal's the obvious choice, I guess. The animal will let you down.
Honestly.
Well, you know, you gotta... A lot of the problem we're having in The Walking Dead is we can't deal with these big personalities. These live wire mavericks that we keep getting in the group.
Wow!
Oh, jeez.
What happened?
He clotheslined you off the bridge.
Oh, yeah, but why? Okay,
You
fine,
won't
if we
even
don't...
be on the bridge anymore.
Clearly. They said no more bridge. Wouldn't really solve the big personality situation, but I would also... I would bring Swedish Chef with me. Like, he'd be cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. Behind you.
Oh shit.
Swear. Okay, can we not die this time? Oh, that's what I missed. There was an arrow there.
Oh, I didn't realize you hadn't seen the arrow.
I did not seen it. I had no idea it was there. This is fine. Yeah, something tells me that this isn't necessarily the construction of a rail bridge, but hey, it's fine, I'm sure. But can we not step on the wood? Good job, Clem. Like, we've seen what happens when you step on this. Can I smack the man? Now we have one less problem to worry about. Hey, don't fall. Stop wiggling everywhere. There we go. We did it.
Thanks, Clem.
Just nod.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, if you want to know about rail bridges and rail bridges that sometimes stop being bridges dramatically when things are going over them, do recommend the Well, There's Your Problem podcast.
You see him?
Still listen to that while you paint?
Yeah, it's really good.
Perfect.
Just play it cool. You do the talking.
What? Why me?
So I don't want to get in a
Voss
fight.
would take Crazy Eddie.
You really think he chose?
Oh, that was Crazy Eddie.
Just don't make any sudden moves. Don't piss
The
him
pyrotechnic expert on the Muppet Show.
off.
I'm just saying.
That's I mean that's a good pick. I don't think that there's like any Muppet that would be particularly terrible to have around, honestly.
Who are you?
Miss Piggy,
Who's that?
probably.
Beaker?
I am.
Beaker. Beaker would be bad.
Wanna?
Beaker's a better than Paul. We're not taking Beaker.
We're not taking Beaker.
Dead Tom probably not very useful in a zombie apocalypse.
Dead Tom definitely not useful, but that's okay.
I think he's been dead too long to be a zombie, but also not gonna help you out much.
You don't look like assholes. Are you assholes? No offense or anything, but you know how it is out here.
I'm not an asshole.
Are you calling me an asshole?
You folks headed north like everyone else?
This guy.
Everyone
I remember
else?
this guy.
I see at least one group a day move through
Vaguely
here.
remember.
You all look the same.
Sweetums is a ringer.
It's like a great migration of the dazed and confused.
Why do you care where we're going?
It's sort of my business, considering
This
I
is a
live
good
here.
question to
You
like
live here?
mull over.
Yep. You're
Which
in my
Muppet would
backyard.
you take
I gotta say,
onto a zombie
you two look like
apocalypse?
shit. If you need food, I've got some canned stuff in that station back there.
Well,
Oh,
that's,
sorry.
nice of you.
What's
I
the
am
catch?
remembering
No catch. I've got plenty.
a lot of this
All right,
group.
Thank you.
And I'm
Hey,
already
no
getting
problem.
feels. It's fine.
Nice running into friendly faces out here.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Got food and supplies back in the station.
No,
And
I
if
know what you mean, I think.
want- What the fuck, man?
It's again, it's like trying not to spoil stuff, but also
What the hell
like
is he doing?
a memory just comes up and I'm like, oh no. Nick! Please.
No. He's with us. Nick! No!
Put it down!
Nick, no!
Nick is the worst.
Yeah.
Nick is the worst.
Did I hit him? Where is he?
I told you not to shoot.
What? Who was that guy?
Why did you shoot?
He pointed a gun at me.
Damn it, Nick. I
Yeah,
told you
because
not
you
to
came
shoot.
running
How
down
was I
the
supposed to hear
fucking
you?
bridge with
You
a
gave me a good
gun!
shot.
That shot rang out for miles. We gotta get off this bridge. Let's go.
Holy shit, Nick. Kermit's nephew wouldn't be a good idea.
Who the fuck was that back there?
Statler and Waldorf would be not a great pick.
No.
Drew on me. He was about
They,
to shoot.
they
Was
just,
he? I'm telling you, man, he drew
Just
back.
exacerbate
That's not what it
tensions
looked like
within
to
the
me.
group.
Shut up, Nick.
honestly.
What did you see, Clem? Was that guy gonna shoot?
Fuck you, Luke. You've been on my case the whole week.
And why do you think that is, Nick?
He wasn't gonna do anything.
That would be worse if he
I
wasn't
know
still
what I
dead,
saw.
honestly, though.
Either way, you could have hit one of us.
Yeah, but I didn't.
I don't think you should have one of Statler and Waldorf.
They are a unit.
Yeah.
You think he was with Carver?
I don't know.
They count as one.
No, I don't think so.
Be good lookouts. They do have a good vantage point, generally.
Can't. Wait a minute.
Fine.
So much
Luke,
heckling.
can I
They
talk
wouldn't
to you
just
alone?
heckle the
Oh,
zombies,
the
though. They
survivors
would
as well. They heckle everyone.
Everyone's fair game. And that's a bit of a problem. Some people can't
Hey,
take a
Clem,
joke.
You got anything to eat? Beck's dying here.
Alvin, I told you I'm fine.
Sorry, I'm out.
Wish we still had those juice boxes.
Yeah, me too. That
Juice?
man said he had food in the station.
Statler and Waldorf start
I'll check it
heckling
out.
Kenny. Kenny just
Hey,
takes,
oh my
takes the
God.
rifle.
A little small for us, though.
You could use it in downsizing.
Sure.
Oh no. We have to
Thanks,
keep them
Clem.
away from Kenny. Kenny has to stay away from them. Speaking of heckling.
I want to take Sam the Eagle, but I don't think he's a bad choice. He's competent, but not personable.
I had to kill my mom.
Cool, you didn't have to kill the man on the bridge.
Sounds weird when I say it out loud, huh?
Also, I'm not your therapist, Nick.
Luke always used to push me.
Nick, I'm 10.
I never wanted to go into business with him. I remember when he sold me on his big plan.
Nick, I
Some
had to see
fucking
my
plan.
parents be zombies and also
Case of
shoot
beer
my
and I
best
just said,
friend.
Nick, we're burning daylight.
And also watch everyone I
Sad.
love around me die.
After 6
Cry me a
months,
fucking river.
flat broke. I didn't care. We were having fun.
Boss does have a good point.
We
I
can
was
find
like him.
people to sacrifice to
Wish
the
I was
zombies
just-
everywhere. We only get to pick one Muppet.
I'm just not.
Unless we pick Statler and Waldorf, who come as a pair.
That's because they're attached to the balcony.
I'm sure they're talking about me right now. Luke, he's becoming a danger to the group. So who was that guy? I swear.
All right, you know what? No, that's a good argument.
Yeah.
Oh, I just did not.
I mean, how do we know he wasn't with Carver anyway?
Give Statler and Waldorf the rifle. They've got a good vantage point.
Maybe I am losing it. I don't know anymore.
Nick, you fucked up, and I meant to tell you that, but I
What time is it anyway?
was too busy thinking about Statler and
Damn.
Waldorf.
What's wrong?
I left my watch back at the cabin. It was Pete's. He gave it to me.
You mean this watch that I stole? You mean this watch that I
That's all
stole?
had left of him. You know what? I'm gonna go talk to them.
Cool, finders keepers. Fuck you, Nick. You killed the nice man. No, I think his story is their own thing. We're already getting wild with Statler and Waldorf being a pair, but they have to come together.
The man said he had lots of food.
Also,
There's gotta be
peaches.
something left.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm willing to hear counter arguments.
I don't see a key around here. That
Punch it.
man probably had it.
Clem, punch it. Just punch it with your little baby fists. But is she attached to the balcony?
I don't know. The thing with Statler and Waldorf, if you just say either Statler or Waldorf, it feels weird.
I'm bringing Statler with me.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't even know who you're talking about unless you say Statler and Waldorf.
Oh, I need to break a thing. I was just gonna let it sit. Also, this is a nice knife. I was gonna combine the words nice and knife, but I realized no matter how I would do it, it would just be knife or nice.
Man, and I thought we had it bad. Look at this dump.
Nice.
Guess he did have food. Man, fuck Nick. Nick's lost
Yeah,
a lot of his
fuck
people,
Nick.
that's for sure.
He's out of control.
That's what I'm saying. He keeps on like that, he's going to get one of us killed. I mean,
I love
you
Alvin.
ever known anyone to do a thing like that?
A woman in our group.
Actually, yeah.
What happened?
A woman in our group. Her dad
Oh,
died
yeah.
and
Oh,
she
yeah!
shot
I tried not to think about Doug
What'd you
dying.
do?
My friend forgave her.
That's horrible.
Huh.
Fucking love Doug.
And then she
Same.
stole our car and left us.
Oh.
I heard. This isn't from the wiki, this is just something I heard. That Doug was, so this could be wrong. That Doug was based on, like, someone in
She
the
was just
office.
like
And he was very upset that no one picked
Hey,
him.
Clem, there's...
Oh!
Everyone let him die in episode 1.
Well, she's eating for two. You think we can keep this just between us? I hate to even say it, you know, but... And I never go against the group.
Rebecca can have it.
That makes me
I
so
won't say
sad.
anything.
Thanks, Clementine. It's a shame. Nick was a good guy. He's still
I don't
a
know.
good guy.
I think I would be
He's just
delighted
losing.
about it, but I also
God knows we're not perfect.
fully understand why
Hell,
someone
I'm
would
glad
be
you're with us, Clem.
upset. I want that to be true.
The hell is that?
I desperately need that to be true. Oh, we got zombies.
We got a problem here.
Yeah, we saw it. All right, we're heading up.
Ooh, hiccups.
Well,
The lights outside just turned off and it scared me.
Have to be careful.
A recurring joke within the Telltale Games staff is how they often encourage players to save Doug over Carla, as the character is based on a real IT staff member in the team, even creating a group called Save Doug. There is a Facebook page dedicated to saving Doug.
I'll check around front.
Yeah, but
I'll
then
go
he
with
just
you.
then he dies the next episode.
Yeah.
It'd be good to know if anybody's actually
I
back.
do love Doug though. Again, I have always chosen Doug.
The designers of the game took their friend, Doug Tobacco, and modeled the character Doug off of him.
I had a treehouse
Oh
once.
my god.
Also, it is revealed that Doug dislikes Lily and Larry through conversations with Lee. It's true. So we know he's good. He fucking hates Larry.
Right? Doug was perfect. Doug got done dirty.
Just take it slow. I'll catch you if you fall. Probably.
Luke.
Got a good grip?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we used to jump rooftops downtown.
Now that
That's
was fun.
beautiful. I love
That sounds
this.
stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. The trick was not to look down, though. Whoa, whoa, whoa! You're fine. You're fine.
Always
Look at
save
me,
Doug.
Okay? You're fine. All right, just slow down, just for a second, okay?
I know I'm fine.
Just trying to help.
Got it. Got this. Hello, bird. Just hanging out up here?
Made it.
Oh, bye, bird.
You see anything?
I can see the bridge.
Oh.
It's really dark. Wait, I see something.
What is it?
A light. Wait, there's another. Luke.
We gotta go.
Luke.
Okay, Clem. Now all you have to do is grab the sides of the ladder and just slide down like they do in Bloodborne. It's gonna look really cool. Honestly, gotta go. It's time to go.
Listen, everyone, just stay
Who
calm.
are you? Are you trying to rob us? Excuse me, honey, but do I look like a fucking thief?
Everyone calm down. Hey, man, you calm the fuck down.
Sarah, get behind me.
Just tell us who you are. We ain't here to rob nobody. Put the gun down, man.
Fuck that. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa.
Please, just do what he says.
Look who it is!
Penny.
Wait, you know
Right?
this
Don't
guy?
people to not look down.
Clementine?
Hi, Allie.
I'm glad you hugged Kenny.
Just gotta hug Kenny. He did kind of redeem himself at the end of the season.
Yeah.
He
I'll
owned
take
up
that
to the
as a
shit
yes.
that he did bad, and then was like, "I'm gonna try and fix this," and he did.
These people with you.
Welcome home, Kenny. Your eyes went demonic
Great.
there for a
Let's start
second.
dinner.
I regret hugging him.
Are you sure you don't mind?
It's gonna storm soon. Please, come in.
Oh, look, it's Kenny. Kenny's still here. It's great.
Kenny and Sarita have been staying with us for several weeks. Used to be a ski lodge, obviously, so we have plenty of food. And believe it or not, we still get some power from that wind turbine out front. We tend to keep most of the lights off at night to avoid drawing attention. But after we found this stuff in storage, we couldn't resist making an exception. What's funny?
Oh, nothing, Walt. Walter here's one smart sumbitch. Makes a mean can of beans, too.
Well, why don't you two catch up while I get some dinner started?
Beans?
Please, make yourselves at home. You can leave your things over there.
The hell we will.
Yeah, I'm holding on to my rifle. Thanks.
You're our guests here. There's no need to worry.
Tell him to put his gun down then.
Kenny?
Will you vouch for these people, Clem?
I'll vouch for everyone
If
except
you
for
tell me
Nick.
they're good, then I'm good. Us. You were the one waving a gun around, man.
I can't speak for everyone.
Luke can remember that. That's fine.
Beck, it's their home. We're not going to find another place like this tonight.
Sorry, Kenny. My new friend Nick is terrible.
New friend. New friend.
Not now, Sarah.
New friend.
Isn't it great?
He's bad. I hate him.
It's amazing.
He's awful. Hey, Kenny, remember Ben Paul? That's Nick. Thank you, Luke. Gonzo would also be a good Muppet on your team.
Yeah, Gonzo would be solid. Gonzo's a solid
Follow
pick.
me, I'll show you where you can
Yeah. Yeah. pretty sure it's just random lights across the bridge. It's nothing to be worried about. Look at that duck. Look at that evil Christmas duck. Everyone's... Okay, there it is. Hi, Mama!
Is Llama still wobbling?
Yeah, a little bit. Can't tell if it's because she's just woken up.
Still wearing this dirty old thing, huh? You know, I half expected to see Lee walk up next to
Gonzo
you.
comes
You guys were
as
like
as
two
his own
peas in a
thing.
pod. Oh shit, I didn't mean to. It's just hard not to think about it, you know?
Chop down fine.
He saved me.
I knew it. I knew he would. That guy had a fire in him, sure as shit. Hell.
Vosh just wants all of the Muppets, is what I'm hearing.
When my son...
Take no people with you, just Muppets.
This is what we've learned. If ever the zombie apocalypse occurs,
where'd you live?
go to the Muppets. They'll keep you safe.
I was with Krista in the meeting.
I trust Muppets.
Well, Krista and I were together for a while, but these guys caught us. She's gone.
Sounds like it ain't been easy for you. I'm sorry, darling. I wish I could have found you sooner. But everything's gonna be fine now.
Where have you been?
Oh, hell. All over after Savannah.
How did you get out of there?
Krista got in a hell of a mess. I gave her a hand, and then it got messier. For a minute there, it wasn't looking too good for old Kenny. Long story short, I got lucky. Real lucky.
Oh, Kenny.
Spent a long time alone after that. And then I met Sarita, thank God. Gosh, it's great to have you back.
You two catching up?
Clem, this is my girl, Sarita. Ain't she beautiful?
Nice to meet you, Clementine.
Hey, Walt, where's Matthew? He's still out there rooting around?
Of course he is. Well, I'll start dinner.
Carlos, right? Mind if I
Yeah,
steal your daughter for a secret mission?
About Matthew.
Stay in sight, sweetie.
Can we do anything to help?
Could use a hand outside. We got a lot of supplies to bring in before that storm hits.
Sure.
Clem, why don't you help Walt with dinner?
Okay. This was just, the Pride and Prejudice thing was just like fan
Clementine.
cast, wasn't it?
Settling
Didn't
in well
actually
enough?
happen.
Yeah,
Because I'd watch it.
Excellent. Want to help me prepare a little dinner?
I just wanted
So how
to
do you
say
know
the
Kenny?
fire that was standing near in the
Me and
last
Sarita
scene
did
was
that
just
before.
coming through one ear on my
I barely
headphones.
knew what to do around
And it
Oh,
kept making me
no.
think my room was on fire.
Old
Oh
friends.
no!
I met him after it happened.
Room's
When
not
he was
on
with
fire, right?
Yeah, he only told us a little.
I am 70% sure my room is not on fire.
Connecting
Oh,
with people
jeez.
is so important.
No, it's not on fire.
I don't know what to do without him.
Hey, Walt, you should start
Gosh, you
considering what
remind
you
me
would
of my
do without
students.
him.
I
Oh, I
can't
kept my-
imagine what it's like.
I had my
growing up
phone
in the
plugged
middle
in.
of all this.
My mom always used to say that the chargers could catch fire. I don't know, it's
no.
nonsense,
Everyone
but
underestimates me.
when it was coming out just
I
one
expect
ear
you
and
to
my
use
phone
that to
was
your
over there.
advantage.
Sometimes.
There was definitely a moment of,
Smart girl.
oh shit, she was right.
She was right.
Almost done.
I
Would
think
you
it's
do
only
me
like
the
a
honor of
concern if you
tasting the
like
first course, madam?
put it under like flammable things.
What is this?
Like
Le
don't
Walter
charge your
surprise.
phone under your
An autumnal
pillow while
legume
you sleep.
salad with a peach roux.
Yeah.
Didn't somebody's phone
Peaches
explode
and
while that
beans.
happened?
That's all we got.
Vaguely
Huh.
remember a story about that.
Striking
It could have
resemblance.
just been bullshit though.
I don't know.
Anyway, I'll take it from
If
here.
it's like a dodgy charger, they can start a fire. If
Yeah. No bad charges here. Please and thank you.
Sam's
Peaches.
laptop charger, he once almost set his bed on fire.
Oh jeez.
Like started just starting to smoke.
Oh no! Please. Well, I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah.
Glad it did not set everything
Cousin
on fire.
Jared's concert, October 13th, 1998.
That's not ideal. Lee, just make sure your phone doesn't explode, okay? We're
Hey
listening
everyone,
to this.
don't burn your house down.
Yeah, hey.
Reminds me of school.
Burning your house down? Bad deal. Wouldn't suggest. You do you, but also recommended that you don't.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I can't tell you what to do, but
Seen one of these since.
it is strongly recommended that you don't.
Clem, we could use some help. Here, Sarah, you take this and string them up over there.
There haven't been any shoulder squiggles, but Sarita's hair did get a little squiggly.
It must be incredible
Ooh.
to see him again. When I met him, well, he's so different now.
Car an eye on
Anything
you.
about
No.
Kenny were one of the ones who had the squiggles before. Could have passed them on.
Oh,
He would
Could be
get a girlfriend
Everything takes a little
who had hair
coaxing these
squiggles.
days.
I think it's just some of her hair's not outlined,
Now
is
we
what
just
it
need the
is.
topper.
We always had an angel on top of our tree.
My family didn't celebrate Christmas, but I still love the decorations.
It's crazy. Why would they follow us?
Maybe
You both
consider,
make compelling arguments.
right?
Can't be sure.
You know what? Maybe you
It's
do
been a
burn your
week,
house
man.
down.
We gotta be out of the woods.
Can't be sure. They might be tracking us.
Tracking? What do you think they are? Ninjas?
Yes.
Clem, Luke said you saw some people in the valley.
Yes.
People? Way down there. How?
I saw
Got
lights.
fucking torches on, guy.
Which way
Where...
did they go?
How do you
back into
think?
the woods.
We cannot take any chances. We leave at dawn.
But we're safe here for tonight, right?
Just remember, 6-foot smell
Clementine,
limit.
You talked to that man Walter, right? What did
That's all
he
I'll say.
You didn't tell him anything about us, did you? We have to be careful.
We mostly talked about Kenny.
Kenny is the loud man with the beard?
Yeah, that's him.
Look, I don't care what that man said. We're staying here tonight.
Just talk to the rest of them. They trust you. See what you can find
Carlos,
out.
fuck
I'm gonna go
you.
find Luke.
Honey, I don't feel so good.
Beck, what's wrong?
I just need something to drink.
You got it. I'll be right back.
So hey, Rebecca.
Are you
This whole
okay?
pregnancy thing.
Just got a little dizzy. I can't even take care of myself. How am I supposed to raise a child? I mean, how can anyone
That sounds
now?
like something you should have
not
thought about
gonna be
before now.
Right? Did you consider that before you got
I know
pregnant?
it's gonna be hard.
During a
At the
zombie
same time,
apocalypse.
I already feel a little less lonely. Because I know that no matter what happens, I'll get to meet someone new.
I mean, that's sweet
She's
and all,
kicking
but
it.
also...
Wanna listen? That food smells good, huh?
Can I?
Gotta start bonding now. You're just full on go in there,
She's gonna
Clem!
be a runner.
Thought she was just gonna
If
put
you
her
guys
hand
haven't
on there,
seen
and she's
it,
like, no, full face. Let's
I don't know
go.
what to do. I can't believe I'm asking a little girl
I'm gonna
for
kiss the
advice.
bean.
Won't kill you.
There's my man.
You alright, baby?
Zombie baby.
Just need to get some food.
Popping out
Zombie
like a
baby is
Thanks
xenomorph.
for staying.
Definitely a thing that has happened
You
in
asked that Walter did.
Cataclysm?
zombie media.
I love you,
I-
Teddy Bear.
Your baby doesn't
I hate
perform
it
like
when
a
you
man
call me
like that.
I know, but I mean it.
It's a shame. You should tell
I
the
love
little
you
bee
too.
to start
Get some
doing it.
rest now.
Wait, Sarah said they put an angel on, right?
I can't remember.
Gonna do the star.
I do like the star better than the angel.
Same.
That's nice, I guess.
Beautiful. I used to
She
love
wanted the
this time
angel.
of year. You know, now that your friends are here,
Nice.
this
Good
place is starting
choice.
to feel like a real home.
Also, I like how everyone is
and Walter
constantly
are
like, "Oh,
amazing
you're friends,"
people.
and it's like I don't like any
Honestly,
of these
it's dangerous
people.
to be this
Alvin's
kind.
the only one that I
You can't help
dig,
it.
and even
Wait
he's
until
a
you meet
little.
Matthew. He's a real character.
Eh.
The first time he met me, he called me Rita.
Where is Matthew?
Oh, he likes to go on long walks. He and Walter used to vacation here. He should be back soon.
We killed the gay boy.
Clem, I wanted to ask
It's
you.
horrible.
Does Kenny seem different to you?
He was so nice.
He was so nice.
And Nick sucks so much.
Right?
In what way?
Just more reasons to hate Nick.
Well, you three have been busy.
Kenny, isn't it great?
I got it, hon.
I think
No, when we're taking the Muppets, Animal's not only gonna shoot the people that you want him to shoot. Just saying.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to take that risk.
Well, everyone,
It'll keep things
dinner
interesting.
is served.
Keep all of us on our
Come on, let's
toes.
eat.
We'll be prepared for anything then.
Okay.
And those who die clearly weren't cut out to make it. So obviously we're gonna go sit with Kenny. Animal would waste ammo, but this is why you give him a machete instead.
Give Animal the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Right here, Clem.
Allie would pick Sam Eagle Sweetums or Ma Bear. Okay.
I think we already said Sam Eagle's a nerd pick. Swims is a good pick.
So, Clem, we were just talking. What's the deal with the kid? And what's his name? Luke? He in charge? You trust him?
Luke is fine.
Kenny, please.
Sarita, we don't know these folks.
Luke is fine.
They seem nice.
Yeah, well, gators seem nice too, till they bite your damn arm off.
Your money's on a Sarah and Nick tag team. They are the weakest links. I don't like Luke,
Big Al? He said they were on the run.
but I
people are
trust
after
him.
them.
Well, you don't have to worry
Alvin's
about that no
fine.
more.
Everyone
They'll go
else is a
tomorrow, you
fucking
can stay here.
liability.
Absolutely.
Nick and
You
Sarah
stay with us as long
especially.
as you want.
She's staying for good.
I'm tired of running.
Of course you are.
Sweetums would be a good pick. I'm here for this. Hi, Luke.
Hey there.
We can de-stuck Sweetums.
Hope you like the food.
Oh, it's great. Thank you.
It's
Peaches
food.
and beans. Great for nutrition.
Nick isn't even
Not too
eating
great
it.
on the way out, though, I tell you.
He put his fork in it and brought nothing out.
So,
Just pretending
Luke
to eat.
and
You're
Nick.
right.
Luke and Nick. You guys sure do look like a match.
What's that supposed
Kenny.
to mean?
Kenny.
I'm just saying you look like good friends, that's all.
So, what was your plan here? Hold out
Kenny.
Actually, we were thinking of moving
Kenny,
on.
I understand
Somewhere up
not
north.
trusting people, but I need you to be a
You ever heard of a
little
place called Wellington?
Wellington?
more chill.
The hell is that?
A place.
Yeah. Krista and I were going there.
Supposed to be a big camp up near Michigan.
Michigan?
You got a hearing problem, kid? Yeah, Michigan. Think
Kenny.
about it. Fresh water, lots of land, and cold-ass winters, so the
The
waters
stage
get
eating.
Sounds like bullshit.
Listen, Vanilla Ice.
Welcome
I
back,
don't know what
TK.
your deal is, but you're more than welcome to take
Oh,
off
so
in the morning.
That'd be just fine by me.
What's the deal with these guys, Clem?
Hey, fuck you, buddy.
It's fine, Nick. We're not staying.
She's staying.
Excuse me?
Please, don't fight.
There was no option to
Gentlemen,
yell at
please,
Nick.
There's no need for this.
It was yell at Kenny
Now,
or
look,
yell
we've
at
all
Luke.
had a long day. Please,
Nick's the one who needs to be yelled at.
Yeah.
I'll take the neutral ground.
Pass me that can, Duck.
Oh! Lamia jumped up on the bed.
Duck?
Scared me.
Who's Duck?
Kenny.
Oh!
Hey, Clementine, would you lend me a hand outside for a moment?
No, I have to stay here, Walt! Kenny's sad!
Oh.
I need to make sure he doesn't go off the deep end and choke Luke or something. If it's Nick, fine,
I
whatever,
used to be a
but...
teacher, and I remember what it's like to be caught in the middle of 2 cliques. I suspect they'll find common ground soon enough. It may take a little time, but that's just how these things work. Everything will be fine.
Hey, Walt, I gotta tell you something.
Listen, relationships are like any machine. You don't throw them out when they break down. You get your hands dirty and you grease the wheels.
Everything will not be fine. Do you really think everyone can just get along?
Expert doubting intensifies.
They say the world is over, but I'll tell you a secret. It's not. People are more political now than they ever were before. In the end, we can't change the world. All we can do is continue to learn from each other, to empathize, and use our heads. All war is a symptom of man's failure as a thinking animal. Steinbeck. Have you read him? Well, we have plenty of time to catch you up on it. My partner Matthew is amassing quite the literature collection. I think you'll like
boy.
In any case, the point is, as long as we have our wits about us, we can always
not dying greasing these wheels.
Right?
Wait for you to read that one.
What's the matter, Clementine? Is there something you want to tell me?
Sometimes
you can.
Sometimes you gotta drop a relationship
There's
down a bell
almost nothing you can
tower.
tell me
And by drop, I mean just stand by while it
I'm
falls.
worried about your friend.
It's a whole
Don't
lesson
worry.
in letting things
Matthew will
go.
be back soon, and everything will be fine.
But I
Literally and
What are
metaphorically.
you two talking about?
Oh,
Hi,
politics.
Kenny.
The hell?
Well, being
gonna-
from Florida, I would imagine you know all about politics, Kenny.
Man,
Gonna
I
call
know
me
one
Duck again?
advantage of living in the apocalypse is not dealing with that shit no more. I was just gonna check the windows round back before this storm hits.
Oh boy.
Give us a hand?
Sure.
Can you see Lamia right there? That's her little head right there. Llama head right there.
Miss?
Llama.
Please, do you have any food?
Are you okay?
I saw the house. I have a family. We're
Negan is the
starving.
only, like,
We live down
one of the
there.
only characters that I know from,
Why
like,
don't you
the
come in,
TV
Miss
show.
Walt, I don't know. You just
Very
gonna let her
familiar
in
with
like
him
that?
and
It's
Lucille.
fine,
Is that it?
We don't know this girl.
His bat?
Then
Lucille?
we'll have to get to
Yeah.
it. Right, Clem? How much damage?
It's the
can
most
this
powerful
building
item in the miniatures game.
Yeah.
It's a good weapon.
Thank you. Really, but that storm will be on us soon, and I gotta get back to my family.
I'll bring something out to you then.
It's more expensive than most people.
No, it's fine.
What about your people?
We've got plenty.
Good weapon.
You stay put. I'll be right back.
Walt! You're too nice. How have you survived this long?
I have a little girl like you. How old are you?
This lady's from the game that we skipped, the
Yeah! The 400 days thing?
400, yeah. She's got the best one of those, like, mini episodes.
Oh.
Most of them are pretty bad. This is kind of fun.
This is too much.
Don't mention it.
I don't know how to thank you.
Just help someone else down the line.
Thank you so much. I'll be going.
I would be
You stay
curious to
safe.
know how
You too.
she got where she is. Maybe I'll play it at some point, but it's like $5,
Clem, go on inside and
which
get to bed.
isn't that
Walt and I
much,
gotta
but
talk for a second.
didn't seem worth it.
I might have it on Xbox. I can't remember. I might still got it installed.
Don't freak out.
If you do, you should play it for me.
Yeah, I will do.
On or off stream, does not matter.
That guy on the bridge was Walter's friend.
Yeah, no, we know. It's not, no. You've gotten it wrong. That's his husband.
That's his
Something
roommate.
was off, so I asked Serena
And they
about
were
their friend.
roommates.
Now they're all worried he's not back yet. I don't know.
No! Sorry.
I
Walt
don't
does
think
look
Walter
like
knows
zombie,
yet,
babe.
So we have to keep this
He
quiet.
does.
I mean, who knows what the
He's
hell
too
he'd do
nice.
if he found out.
Don't freak out. Ah! Hey.
What if he finds out anyway?
Consider.
Well, then we're fucked.
Friends.
But, you know, we'll just deal with it then.
Good
Now,
close
do you,
friends.
You still have that knife? Because if it was Matthews and Walter sees it, he's gonna put 2 and 2 together.
It's with the other weapons.
Okay, well, go get rid of it. And I'll find Walter.
I
and
need
run
to know where
him
Nick
through.
is. He's a liability.
Keep an eye out for Nick.
I'm right here. What's up?
Oh!
Oh,
It's fine.
There's nothing, man. I just wanted to check and see if you're okay.
You coming to tuck me
Sure,
in?
check.
We have to tell you something.
Get that gamer posture out of
Hey,
here.
if there's something going on, I want to know.
No, just go back to bed, Nick.
I'm sitting up straight now.
Good. Everyone make sure you're sitting up straight. Maybe wiggle your shoulders a little bit.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God damn it. Hey, Nick, shut the fuck up.
I can't, man. I can't.
Do not fucking
You
blow
fucked up,
Blow
Nick.
it. It's over.
Thank you,
I have
boss.
to tell him, Luke.
What? No, hey, Nick, you cannot do that. Are you fucking nuts?
I gotta. I can't live with that on me.
Okay, I hear you, but you fuck, man. Do you know what he's gonna do?
You don't know he'll do anything.
Well, are you kidding me? Nick, you shot his friend.
You should
It's
tell
good
him.
to stretch out.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm
Make sure
warning
you are
This
as
is fucking suicide.
planked as possible.
Jesus Christ.
Dougie!
Jesus.
Dougie!
I can't handle this.
My
Clem, just
my
go do that thing,
alerts
all
are lagging a little bit right now. There it goes.
Hi, Eiley.
Hi, I love you too. Hey, I love you. Dougie, thank you for the sub, friend. I really appreciate it. Also,
It's gone.
9 months. That's a Twitch baby. We got a Twitch baby right here. What are we naming our Twitch baby? Is it Hermbull? I think we should name it Hermbull. More babies for me then.
Just baby and cuss cosplay.
Put the knife down.
I'm sure it's fine.
I always
Also,
liked this knife.
Walter's a hard ass now. Herm baby.
Gave it to Matthew.
Not
when all this
Florpus.
started.
Oh, Brian Hermbull the
I know
Fifth.
that.
That's a good name. I love little Brian Hermbull the Fifth.
Kid, what's his name? Nick? Heard him talking earlier or something about
But
shooting
hi,
him.
Dougie. How are you doing? We love you. It's
can
nice to see you. Also, things are getting tense.
I can
I
see
think
it on
Walter's
his
gonna
face.
Walter's gonna cut him in.
But now,
Nah, we're gonna be straight
was
up with
us.
him.
It was our fault.
No, you're supposed to tell him it was Nick. Hey, Clementine? The dialogue said Nick.
Jesus. I
Clementine.
don't feel good.
No, that's fair, buddy.
Nick shot him.
Let's finish this out. I think we're pretty close to the end of the stream. Yeah, no, I mean like so OBS and Discord both crashed, like I had no internet. But like the entire time my computer said that I had internet. I don't know what was going on. Also, I don't have Big Brian with me right now. And I don't have anything comparable for Big Brian. So we will refund those points for you. But I should also probably just disable that for now. Big Brian's gotta go. I didn't kill Big Brian, Fruity, listen!
I don't know.
Big Brian is just not here at this house with me right now.
I reckon he's in the ground, buried under the 6-foot smell limit.
Well, if he is, you'll never know. Maybe it's time I remake Big Brian, if I'm being promised tinfoil. Also, Walt, chill. I mean, don't chill. You have every right to be angry, but... if you're gonna use that, use it on Nick. Oh, never mind.
I didn't do anything. Alright?
You did, though.
Nick, we already told him.
Yeah,
We
right?
told him that you shot him and that you did it because you're a piece of shit.
Hey, Nick, I've told him everything.
What's going on? The storm's got it
I
spinning out
want
of
to.
control.
I want to
That
kill him
sounds
so
gonna draw
bad.
walkers. We gotta shut it down now.
Nick, help me. Carry the guns.
Guns?
Oh, this is gonna get wild. Our poor boy.
That thing's a damn dinner bell.
No, it's a wind turbine, Kenny. I don't know what things are like in Florida, but
What the hell was that?
these are the dangers of renewable resources that we've been warned about.
Use a hand.
They draw the attention of zombies.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. Resty, get this
Not
thing
like
shut
a
down.
clean, safe coal power plant. That would whisper quiet.
Obviously, coal is the
This
clean
message
option.
brought to you by Big Coal.
Yeah, hi, I forgot to tell everyone I'm being sponsored by
Watch your back. Quick,
clean
scan the
renewable coal resources now. Some folks call it a wind turbine. I call it a dinner bell. Are we eating wind now? Hey, TK? Do you eat wind? Are we filter feeding over here? Dang.
Do you breathe through your skin?
Oh god. Whoa. Terrifying. Just every inhale, the pores open a little bit. I'm gonna stop. I hate where I've gone with that. I'm done. Even I know when it's too far sometimes.
We don't have much ammunition.
We gotta get back to the lodge.
Hey, so if we're gonna shoot all the zombies, make sure not to shoot the zombies that I've already shot, okay? We had this issue with the last group. Never mind, I don't do any shooting, I just watch everyone. Okay, maybe I do shoot a zombie. Ah! Whoa! Hey!
First time Clem's missed a headshot.
Right? Clementine! I mean, they can't all be winners, but also... I expected better.
We've
There
come
we
to
go.
expect winners.
Right? Oh. Clementine! Oh, this is a problem. I have to go. Clementine, we have to go. Am I gonna get eaten? Okay. Oh! Get fucked, Carlos.
Get to the lodge.
Also, you left the rifle. You
Ah.
left the rifle. Horrible choices were made today. Never mind. Great choices were made today. Oh! That's how I dislocated my shoulder. Rolling over like that.
How you dislocated your shoulder trying to shift the corpse.
Yeah, definitely. No, I just rolled over on my shoulder. It's fine. I did break a toe once. Because
Trying to
Gurney
shift the corpse.
Yeah, I mean, kinda.
Oh no.
Trying to push a gurney to get a body out of a freezer, and it rolled over my foot and broke my toe. Oh shit, Walt! My man! Doing the Lord's work over here. No, don't pretend like you're upset about this, Clementine.
I thought Walt straight shot Nick. Maybe there's an option where he does that.
Maybe.
You didn't see him?
Don't hit Walt.
Clem.
Walker's got him.
Walker's got him.
Don't be ashamed, Walt. It's fine.
Go!
I'm glad Nick is gone.
What the hell?
Dang, I wish I'd gotten Carlos. Bonnie.
Howdy, folks. Where's Rebecca?
No, Walt just like straight up refused to shoot the zombie.
He didn't miss, he didn't fire at all. He just thought we were gonna get Nick and stopped.
Yup. Yeah, it was Ben's situation. He saw that he was getting got by a zombie and was like, guess there's nothing I can do. And I respect that.
It's you.
Keep moving.
Oh, Walt.
Good flop.
Clementine really said, I'm flopping.
Excellent dodge flop.
It was a very good dodge flop. Proud of you, Clementine. Confirmed, Walking Dead Season 2 got that good flop tech.
You believe this fucking place, Bonnie? Power and everything. A lot of windows, though. It's fucking huge. Bill's gonna hate it. Now the rest of them could be anywhere.
Do it,
Man,
Clementine.
how the fuck are we gonna cover these guys and look for them too?
Johnny, cover that window.
Just keep looking at her, Walt. She'll feel guilty.
Did it flash up for like one frame, just Bonnie's head?
Yes. Yes, it did.
That's fine. It's fine and normal.
It has done this a lot. Like, even Season 1 had a couple of those instances where it, like, very quickly, like, flashed a different character in, like, a completely different situation. You're like, why is that there? It's great, and I love it. Oh, no.
Listen, I'm only gonna ask you once. Where's Rebecca?
Sarah, look at me. It's gonna be okay.
I don't think it's gonna be.
Rebecca! Rebecca! Our baby deserves to be raised in a place of safety. I know you're out there.
Oh, his finger is so floppy.
Girl, this is
Oh,
real simple.
fingy.
You want this over quick, you all play nice. And show your faces.
But it's okay, you can break the other fingers too. I want to see them all wiggle.
No, Alvin.
We gotta go down there.
I can't do that.
Beck, the baby. You need a doctor.
No. Where's Luke and Kenny?
Let's get out of here.
Only way out is through these windows.
Clem can fit.
You heard him. He knows she's here.
There goes another fingy!
Find Luke.
What the hell is she going to do? And you heard him.
What?
knows she's with
Crunchy
us.
fingers!
Don't hurt my dad, please.
We're going down there.
He'll kill you.
So crunchy.
Fuck you. Shoot him! Somebody just shoot him!
Oh!
Clem, go get help.
He'll kill him, Beck.
I'll find Luke and Kenny. Stay here.
This is fine.
God damn it.
Hydrate redeem from Doggy. Thank you, friend. All y'all drink some water.
Hurry.
I'm gonna go
Let's see if I can get your attention.
Okay, good. I'm gonna pause.
No, not pause. It takes seconds.
I'm pausing.
No pause. Never
Not
pause.
pausing. I'm not pausing. Look, I got faith in Sarah. Sarah can fuck this all up for us. She's a one-girl destroying machine. She's gonna fuck this all up, and it's gonna be great. Because it will have proven our point. Kenny! Kenny! Oh.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
How many fingers has man got left?
I think he's still got 3, at least on the one hand.
Oh, he got edges.
Yeah, right?
It's probably down another one.
Maybe 2. I do like this idea of just setting the lodge on fire.
Where's Luke?
Hell, I don't know. He was whining about something or other, so I told him to take a hike.
Kenny, I need more details than that. Ugh. Oh. Gross.
Looks like they got everyone. Who are these guys?
Kenny, you should shoot. You should shoot Carver.
I've got a pretty clear shot on the one. Just a little bit to the left. You son of a bitch.
That's not the one that we want to kill, but
Yeah, that's
you know.
the wrong one.
But we're gonna go for it.
Got him.
Maybe now Carver will kill Carlos. Oh, wait, never mind. Oh.
Yeah.
Walt!
Oh my god.
That's for our man. Now I
Well,
didn't want to do this.
Now he doesn't have to live without Matthew.
So here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna march another one of your friends out here, and I'm gonna put a bullet in the back of their head. Or you can give up now. Your choice.
Motherfucker.
Kenny, you're bad at this.
Kenny.
Kenny, over there.
Why are we running over here? Oh no.
No! Tell him to stop! Kenny, stop!
Alvin.
Damn. It's a tough shot.
It's not that tough, actually.
Yeah.
Kenny!
Kenny, give me the gun.
The hell are you doing?
Oh, I thought that was me taking the gun.
We can't just give up.
Kenny, he'll keep doing this. Think about Sarita.
That's a good point.
We're
Clem could have made that shot though.
Right? When it said grab gun, I assumed that was me taking the gun, but Clem had other plans.
Finally cut and run, huh?
You know, I decided this immediately, Lee.
I warned you.
Honestly.
Just headshot every one of them in a row before they could do anything.
But you're safe now.
I
Going
miss
home.
Lee.
As a family.
What a cool guy.
All right, round
Mild
one.
mannered history teacher. Who will murder you?
He's done it before, he'll do it again. At least 14 times. Potentially 28. Or was it 26? It might have been 26.
20
From your
something.
dubious source.
But one of those kills was on himself.
It counts. It counts.
Does it? Because there's not even any ending where Lee kills himself.
Okay, no, that is fair.
It's just
Okay, maybe
not
it
true
doesn't
on
count.
several levels. He tells Clem to shoot
Son
him.
of a bitch would have shot Walt no matter what we
He's,
did. Well, I ain't going out like that. Not without a fight.
It's, guilty
I know.
by
Folks are
association.
sore over what happened. But let's remember, these
I don't
not
think we
have
should
pulled the
count it
trigger.
and
on
have a
the
vital role to play in the
on the list.
They strayed
Yeah,
from
I
the flock, yeah.
guess.
That don't mean they can't earn their way back into the fold.
Oh, I remember this
Can't find it
episode.
in our hearts to
This
forgive
episode's
them.
quite good.
Yeah, it is. This is the one that I, like,
Those who choose
predominantly
not to accept our
remember.
love will surely wish that they had.
Oh, fuck.
A storm is on the way.
Yeah, I think this is the one I remember as being the best one. coming up. That's for next time.
That'll be next week. And it's still very 50-50. I think this is more what I was expecting with like season 1, is everything being 50-50 because everyone's played through it and done the opposite choice. Well, fantastic. And this is great because this is more or less about the time that we were going to finish anyway. Hey, game? You just going to sit here on a blank screen? Okay. They went to a hardware store, I think? I don't know. We'll know for sure next time. Here, I am gonna turn that down and then just let it run. But yeah. We did it. We got through 2 episodes today, which is more than I was anticipating.
I think
but I guess some of them are weird.
But like reasonably, they were both 2 hours, which is like fine. But some of the ones in one went for like 3+.
Honestly, the ones in one though were very good.
yeah, one is better than this one, but I don't think it's bad.
No, it's good. It's just definitely like, I mean, things.
I do like the bit in the lodge.
Yes,
There's a lot that can go on there. A lot of people can die there.
Right? I think when I went through, I think Alvin got shot.
Yeah,
I think I let Kenny just like do the thing, and Alvin died, and that was tragic.
I think Kenny like takes the shot, the dude falls down, and he's like, "Yeah, I did it, I saved the day," and then the dude's just grazed, and he gets back up and just shoots Alvin immediately.
That sounds
and then
about
brings
right.
Kenny's wife over, so he surrenders.
Yeah. It's a lot can go wrong there.
Yeah.
But this was awesome.
Also, like, I since Nick's not around, and since it's like absolutely not not a spoiler, he like wanders off at some point in the next episode if he's alive, and then you just see his zombie later. Like, it's they did not expect you to try and keep Nick alive.
That's because Nick is the worst. That's
Nick is
hilarious,
trash.
though. That's hilarious, though. No, he got.
I'm not sure if there's parts we can die in the next one, but if you keep him alive, at some point he just leaves and becomes a zombie. Off screen.
Good. I mean, it's what he deserves. Anticlimactic. Just vanish. Maybe show up as a zombie. It's fine. Nah, this is great though.
Just so you know that Nick died on the way to his home planet.
Rip Nick. Except don't. Get out of here, Nick. Go away. Go away forever. So yeah, we'll pick this back up on Monday.
Yeah.
Do the next episode. Awesome.
Perfect. I'm down. If you still want me here.
Yeah. No, I'm very much enjoying this.
Yeah, these are good.
Cool. I'm gonna let this continue to finish up while we Maggie the Wags mate. That's a good pet name.
That were pet name, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. Sir Puppington, Earl of Pupshire?
It's too much. It's too much.
I like it. Brendan Q. Ferguson was another name.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, reminder, there will be no stream on Friday, because we're gonna watch movies in Discord. And then
Horror Fest Friday, as always.
As always.
We're gonna watch Muppets, because we're an Emperor's New Groove.
Got a double feature planned. I'll figure out a time to do that. See what works well for everyone. Probably around the time that I usually stream. We might start like a smidge earlier though, since it's 2 movies. But we will do that on Friday, and then we'll be back on Saturday. I think I'm gonna start streaming at 12 Central, on Saturday since it's barf day time. And I think the plan is just to long play. Oh, Discord said no, thank you.
It's not.
It's fine. Yeah, I'm just gonna play Bloodborne all day and hang out. Y'all should just hang out. Come say hi. I might set up like a stream call for like specific people if people want to hang out and just chat while we play. I don't know. I'm just excited to play games with people hanging out. Oh, my scenes are all funky. This is fine. There they are. It's back now. Barf day. Or birthday, however you want to say it.
Oh, birthday.
Barf day. It's the barf day time. Nah, it's gonna be great. I'm excited. But yeah, we're gonna end here. Sam Killjoy, streamer Sam, is streaming some Elder Scrolls right now. Y'all want to go say hi?
We're raiding my brother? He's
raiding your
not
brother.
a streamer.
He is now. Hey, we meant to tell ya. No, Sam Killjoy is streaming, so I think we're gonna go raid Sam. I will not be taking suggestions.
I could see some playing Elder Scrolls 5 over there as their cat.
Right? It's gonna be perfect. So I am gonna start that raid. Thank you as always, Fruity, for hanging out and playing with us. This is delightful, and I'm very much having fun with it.
Everyone died, and it was horrible. This is lovely.
We had a great time. Stream exploded a little bit, but it wasn't. It was mostly the end of stream, so it's not too bad.
I think they exploded once on each end, just to keep it fair.
It was my turn to explode. Nah, so we'll do more Walking Dead on Monday, and it'll be great. Have a good rest of your time zone, everyone, and I will see y'all later. Go say hi to Sam. Bye, friends. Bye. I'm leaving now. Okay, bye. Bye.